second act.
Test.
I'm going to turn you on.
Go green, Jake. Go green.
These guys, they're already,
They're anxious.
they're jumping the gun.
Yeah.
I was gonna reorganize.
Put them at the end.
I was gonna,
See, there's obvious advantages when you table something.
You think?
Get back and get first shot.
Like it. I'm tired of worrying about it. I'll just take my minutes.
okay, well, we should worry about it a little bit, because Feinberg is.
Are we
not
we
gonna
live
be
or
here.
not live?
Yeah.
We're undead.
Well, that's easy, right?
I was told to just hit the button and that's it. But I'm not seeing it come up on my phone.
We should be live.
That's true.
There's nobody here, I presume.
No.
So we're not live.
We're undead.
We look like we're alive.
We're undead.
Some of us. Oh, well.
Exactly.
Maybe if she reboots.
Yeah, just make sure
could be.
that your motions are clear.
Well, we never worry about that. Okay. Historic Preservation Commission, October 17th, 2022. It is now a couple minutes past 6. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. Pledge of allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Here.
Ms. Pisagno?
Here.
Mr. Testa?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here.
Mr. Stevenson?
Here.
Mr. Becker?
Here.
Thank you.
Minutes, September 19th, 2022. You've had an opportunity to review those. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Abstain.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolutions. You've had a chance to look at those. Do I have a motion to accept the resolutions?
I will so move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Stevenson. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Abstain.
Mr. Testa?
Yes, with abstention as to Walsh and to Seelatega.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes, with an exception for 219 North Street.
Thank you.
Weren't we on the resolutions?
Yeah, there is no
No,
219.
there's no
on-
219.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was ahead of myself.
Yeah.
I think we know how he's voting on the next one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but yes, yes for resolutions.
yes, okay.
I need another cup of coffee.
Hey, who reads all the addresses?
We have applicants jumping the gun. We have members of the
Been
commission.
accused of
Oh,
that.
we're starting off really
Just
well.
wait a minute, we'll get to that. Applications approved or denied in review. You've had a chance to look at those. Do I have a motion to accept?
So move.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes, with abstentions for Greco and Reimer.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes, and again with an exception for 219 North.
Thank you.
Before we get to tonight's business, I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge and give the commission the information. Bob Feinberg is not here tonight. He has COVID, and I talked to him today. He's recovering, but he sounds like he has COVID. Unfortunately, I'll take a moment to acknowledge the passing of Bob Feinberg's wife, Ginny. As far as I know, there's no other information for next steps, but as soon as I know what they are, then I'll share it with the members of the commission. So, yeah. So, with that, Bob is listening tonight. He's watching tonight. He might not be listening. First order of business, 409 Elmira LLC. This is Block 1060, Lot 33. This is a non-contributing, it's a new three-story mixed-use building. The applicant has been before us before, and there's been a lot of comments back and forth trying to get this application satisfactory to the commission. So with that, we'll turn it over to,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Anthony Monzo, representing the applicant 409.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you speak into your mic, and can everyone introduce themselves? Thank you.
Okay. Representing the applicant, did you get the first one? It's Anthony Monzo, representing the applicant 409 Elmira LLC. I don't think this one is working. That's why we're sharing
Oh, okay.
this one.
Did you push the button? Oh, it's,
Yeah, there's no light.
yeah.
Now she's got a replacement.
He's had plenty of experience in knowing how to use it.
Thank you.
We don't want you to feel neglected.
There you go.
That one goes away from you.
You want me to turn it a little bit more?
I'm fine, don't worry about John.
With me are Lou DeLasso, who's the project architect, and I have Joe Schulte, who's the principal of the applicant. I want to thank the commission for the comments last month. They were taken, considered, and various adjustments were made. We also met with city officials, city manager, city solicitor, and the assistant city manager to talk about the parking and possibly getting the city to either support entrance from the city parking lot or to see if the city would assist in getting us some entrance off of Osborne Court. We did write a letter to the New Jersey Transit. We got contact information. We haven't received anything yet. That may change the parking arrangements, but we would like to come back here and have the commission take another look at the plans as modified to see if we could at least get the building conceptually approved, and then we'll go to the planning board, and if we have to alter the streetscape based on that, we will take it back to the commission. So the comments we got last month are the building was massive, and it was, I think the roof had a lot to do with that. There was a rooftop deck off the one side, and what you see on the screen now is what we presented last month. You can see the rooftop decks, and then there was that air conditioning unit and a staircase coming up onto the roof that made it look even bigger than it was. And we looked at the neighboring properties, and in particular, the one at the corner of Elmira and Lafayette, and figured let's scale it down a little bit, soften the roof lines, create more dormers, eliminate the decks, eliminate the air conditioning on the roof, and also eliminate the deck that came out almost to the street in front of the building along Elmira. And also with the driveway itself, it was kind of sterile, all concrete. So what we've done is created some brick pavers in the drive areas rather than the concrete, along with some grass and some plantings. And so why don't you put up what you...
There it is.
Okay. So this is what's being proposed now. You can see that deck extending out towards Elmira has been eliminated. You can see the dormer, third floor, and you can also see the brick pavers along with some grass strips on the one side, along with some landscaping in the middle. And we're going to try to get one parking variance from the city. I think they'll support that, so we can at least create, you know, an area where people can walk up as opposed to walking through parked cars, and also have some green in the front as well. If we can get parking in the back for the residential, that would only leave 2 parking spaces in front. Is that correct, Lou?
Yeah, this is, and the building will not change, it just flips,
Okay.
so that there would be 2 parking spaces off of the back. We call it Osborne Court, but the New Jersey Transit, those would be the residential spaces, and the commercial spaces would be out front with more landscaping and walkway patterns.
So this is the alternative plan if we can get the parking in the back, but if you can just flip to what we're proposing or presenting tonight at least, so I think we'll have to assume, at least for now, that the parking will be in the front with 1 less parking space. By the way, the parking coming in off the city parking lot was not workable. Actually, the city engineer was at that meeting as well, and he just said there's not an adequate turning radius in order to have parking coming in off the parking lot.
Condensers. We relocated the condensers from the roof, the hat that was responded, and created an alcove with door access so that they're on the property at a grade level and out of the way, and shielded by not only, there'll be a fence there, I didn't show it so you could see it. There'll be a fence there, but there's also the existing bicycle garage that's there. I also did 3D interpretations of the streetscape. There was a concern about the scale with what was on the street. And you can see we're on the same basic scale with the dormers and everything, I believe, as the artisan alcove area. I think the one in the back, the rooming house is actually bigger, but that's not exactly in the same block. And I think the comments that you made, all of you collectively, helped tremendously in reducing the quality of the problems of the mass of the site. Also, after having met with the city, they were concerned about the columns between the parking spaces, so by removing them and putting them back, the building is now symmetrical.
And the materials, except for the driveway, parking area materials, everything is the same as presented at the meeting last month.
Yeah, these strips here are what we call grasscrete. I don't know how familiar you are with that product, but they're kind of like cinder blocks turned on their side, filled with grass, so that you can, it'll support a car, but it gives you a green surface.
Can you explain the materials that you're presenting for the parking areas?
Yeah, there's two basic pavers. There's the brick pavers, and I have them in the packet, and then there are cobblestone pavers for the public parking. So that in this scenario, there's a clear definition of which space is commercial. If we don't get the parking from the transit authority, there'll be private signs here prohibiting parking by the public in those two spaces. If you look on E9 of the submission, all the materials are pictured, including the grasscrete, the walkway pavers, and the parking pavers. I don't know that we got the materials before, but the siding, I'm looking at a shingle-style architecture, and their siding would be hardy board. The shingles of the hardy board, there would be a lot of AZAC trim and/or hardy board trim, one of the two that we could mate. The brick down here would be brick tiles. I've also softened and delineated what could be considered a carriage house. I know there's no cars for the time being that we're talking about, but this would all be board and batten and a wood overhead door, brackets supporting it, so there's no impeding the actual cars or the vehicular surface in that area.
That planter box, the brick planter box in the corner, that's an addition as well?
Yeah, this is an addition. This is an addition. If we can get the variance, I'd like to I want to put a street tree here. I'd like to put a planter here and possible benches so that when people walk through, they'll have an area to collect.
And that requires zoning or planning approval?
Planning board approval, yes. And with the exception of we need 3 variances because we have 2 parking spaces in the city parking lot, even though they're dedicated by agreement to this property owner because they're not on site, they require a variance. The back out parking requires a variance, and there's 1 setback variance for the parking as well.
It's an interpretation that the city engineer has made. We don't believe that you need there's a section of the ordinance that states you need a 5-foot buffer from the parking space to a residential use, but the ordinance does not specifically say about a buffer from a commercial space to a commercial zone. But we want to make that, have that discussion with the city. As far as the back out, if we can get the variance, instead of having a 45-foot curb cut here, we would have two 18-foot curb cuts. If the alternative is reached, we'll have an 18-foot curb cut.
And what presently exists there?
There's an 18 to 20-foot curb cut, but there are 4 cars there. They stack, and one on top, and one in front of the other. There are those, let me see where I can, if I can call these up. That doesn't, yeah, here they are. You can see from the neighborhood here, these are pictures of the adjacent properties that I've translated onto the 3D version here. This is the property across the street, and then Artisans, and then basically Inkwell, and the single-family house with the bus garage, transfer, welcome center, and then also the bicycle place, as well as looking down the street. So with the setback and everything, and the reduction of the roof from being that massive 3-story structure in front of you, the dormers help, in my opinion, make it aesthetically a lot more pleasing. Sure?
As I recall, didn't we talk about reducing the ceiling height on that second floor? It was 9 feet, and
We reduced the height of the building from 38 feet to 35 feet. That was something else that was discussed as well. And by getting rid of the hats and all that superstructure up top with the stairwell and everything, that all got axed off. And by putting the dormers in, that's what got us down. All of this taking out of that, it got it down another 3 feet.
What's the interior ceiling height for that third floor?
Third floor ceiling height is 8 feet.
second floor.
Second floor is 9 feet.
Second floor is 9 feet, okay.
It's 9 feet, 8 feet, and then basically I need a little more space for the commercial space downstairs. It's 10 feet on the commercial.
But you would argue that you're at or under the 35-foot.
I am under the 35 foot. I'm at 34 foot, 8 inches.
Okay. On the final, this is the final drawing?
This is the final drawings, yeah. I can go to the architecturals if you want.
Could
It's
you,
not the final one because you have the parking and the...
yeah,
Oh, excuse me, wrong one.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to make sure that my question is clear, because we don't try to mind zoning or planning's business. But aesthetically, those pilings that are holding up that porch seem to be exposed to the cars. I asked that question because it's aesthetically pleasing.
There will be
Would you-
bumpers across the front of this that aren't shown on this plan. And I'd like to find a Victorian hitching post as bollards that could be placed in front of that as well. And I think that would help, you know, all the way across the board in terms of just an additional barrier. I think on the architecturals, I do indicate bollards, but they're not, I haven't found one that I like yet. It would, that's what I'm thinking about, more of a hitching post type thing.
And the way we're talking, you're looking for conceptual tonight.
That's correct.
It's not indicated on the application, but, so
We'll take a final if you
I'll
want.
mark that for
Well,
you.
actually, we don't, we want,
good luck
until
on
we go to the planning board, we
Yeah.
don't want to do, things may change, so we just want to get the building
Yeah,
first.
I just wanted to clarify so we know what we're meeting about. Thank you. Is that,
Yeah, I'll answer any questions that you,
we'll go around the table and see where we are. Jim, you want to?
Sure. I guess, first thing I ought to say is I'm impressed that my terminology of the word hat seems to have struck home a bit. And I appreciate the efforts to remove it, and I think the efforts to remove it were successful. The roof line now it doesn't project up high, and you have managed to reduce about 3 feet off the height. I'm still troubled by the fact that the building's too large. But you're under the height limitation, and you have a desire to do a 3-story building. I think it still has a little bit too much massivity to it, but you've opened it up, and in being responsive to that height situation, I think you've done a good job. I find that it peels away from Elmira Street perhaps a little bit more than I thought it did before, so I think that's positive. We still have an issue with the parking. I think I could support this, particularly if you wound up succeeding in your variance quest for putting the parking located in the back. But by and large, I think it's a significant improvement.
If I may, and it wasn't brought up earlier, we are under the FAR for the building with the zoning codes.
Yeah, it just looks so big, and yet if you're telling me the proportions all fit. I guess maybe it's because Elmira Street's so small and it's so narrow that it looks like it would be creating something of a corridor, although you've got space to the north side of it toward the Welcome Center. It's actually more open from that side.
Yes.
But from Elmira, to me, it still looks cramped. I think you're a long way, though, down the road to improving it.
Thank you.
My biggest problem before was just the fact that from the streetscape experience, pedestrian experience, that there was a lot of concrete. And I think you've done a good job softening that with your landscape features to make it more pleasing to a pedestrian.
Thank you.
It still seems to me to be very big. And when you compare it with the houses across the street, so there's that little rancher, you can't really compare it to that. But to the inkwell and the house that's next door to the inkwell, how tall are they? Or how much taller is this building than they are? I guess that's a better way of putting it. I mean, it looks to me so much taller.
Let's see if I can get you a height. Inkwell is about 24 feet in height, and come on, you can do it.
Software, it's amazing.
Computers, they're wonderful things when they work. This is about 26 feet in height.
And how about the artisan one?
That is 35 feet in height.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that's comparable in height. I didn't do the full depth of the artisan, but the bicycle shop would be between the two in height.
Right. So I guess what I think is, I think the design of the building is reasonable. I think you certainly have, changed things based on what people said the last time. But this impresses me as it's just like sticking up in the middle of this street that has everything else lower. And I don't think that would necessarily be a huge issue, except the probability that these things are going to change is pretty slim. I mean, the city's in the process of changing this parking lot. It's going to always probably be a parking lot. The depot's always going to be, the train station is always going to be that. These buildings across the street are probably, with a few exceptions, maybe going to stay because they're historic. And it just seems like this is like just sticking up in the middle of nowhere, like it's in a desert or something. But as far as the design goes, I think it's fine. The parking, backing out onto Elmira, to me is a huge issue, but that's not our issue, so.
I had hoped that because of the parking lot, that would actually make it look better, because it's almost like a mall-type concept. There's a lot of space there, and it's not crammed in.
Yeah, no.
And
I
I'd love to
agree
see the
with that.
parking lot improved, that way they would complement one another.
Oh, it's, if the building on that side of Elmira, if there were no parking, the way you have it with the grass strips, the cinder block strips, I mean, if that was all grass across the front, I think it would it would diminish the height because it removes the building further from the street.
If we get the
Maybe-
transit authority to
Yeah.
approve, that's going to really make it work better. So we're pushing. They're not the most cooperative communication area, shall we say.
Oh,
I'm being polite,
there you are, it's what you have, right? It is what it is.
what it is. Thank you.
So, but I think as far as what you did for I think the design is nice, I just wish it wasn't on that lot. That's what I think.
Thank you.
I'm in agreement with the comments I've heard. I'd also like to point out that when we give a demolition permit, none of those grandfathered issues stay with the property. They're part of the demolition.
Yeah.
And we have worked so hard to have buildings facing the pedestrian and driving areas and get the parking behind where it should be. And this would be a real reversal. I mean, even if you get those 2 parking spots moved in the back, you're still trying to give some spots out there for retail, which is backing in and out again on a very tough street.
You do realize that there's continuous curb cuts and backouts down that entire street,
They're
virtually.
grandfathered in.
I know they're
If any of those
grandfathered in.
people, tore their buildings down or wanted to do major improvements, we would be eliminating them as well. Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's one reason some buildings don't get torn down, because, all the grandfathered issues that they have. Those grandfathered issues probably saved Congress Hall Hotel, because if they tore it down, they never, ever could have gotten as many different things going on the property as they had from the historic past. Last time, we also suggested that you consider a 2-story building and have one much larger, more expensive to rent apartment, reducing your parking needs. And we also suggested having more windows on the side that faces the bicycle shed. Looks to me like you're still kind of minimalistic there and giving that even more of a wall existence. And this wall just comes right out to the property line. So it will seem really big because it is really big in things in comparison. I would feel a little bit more comfortable if it wasn't going all the way up to the max height and maybe be a 2-story building. And if you could straighten out that parking so that people aren't backing out into Elmira Street, that would help us an awful lot in continuing to enforce hiding your parking somewhere on the property.
Understood.
I'm done.
Corbin?
I agree with Tom and Pip. I've got nothing else to add.
I think that I had missed the former meeting when this was discussed, but I think it's going to be a real addition to the neighborhood. I hope that they can make it a little softer with a little more grass, but I also think there's a possibility that it could become a focal point. If you remember when they redid the Wawa, they put that in that terrible spot. It was a low building. It brought that neighborhood together, and I think it might have the possibility of doing that. So I think it's nice the way it is.
John?
So I think you folks have done a great job in terms of addressing our concerns, primarily the height and the character and the scale. My only issue still remains backing out on Elmira Street, and I have to really applaud your attempts at trying to address that by approaching the state to see if you can gain access from Osborne, because the biggest issue for me is that the sidewalk's not continuous all the way across there. So other than that, I think you've done a great job, and I would support the project.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You can't reduce the height of these floors? Can't they be, does the first floor have to be 10 feet?
I can reduce it by a foot.
And the second floor doesn't have to be 9 feet.
I can reduce that by a foot, but it's 2 feet. If that would be the request, I could certainly look into it, sir.
Well, I think the idea is to continue to try to reduce the mass of the building and its location. Also, I want to clarify, so when the HPC talks about backing out on Elmira, that is a planning and zoning issue. That's not a HPC issue. An HPC issue, though, is parking in the front of a building for obvious reasons, because during the period of significance, people didn't have cars and they didn't park in front of the building. So the context of our comments are from a HPC perspective. I share the same concerns. I appreciate what you've done. This is a big improvement. I think that reducing it a further 2 feet sounds like not a lot, but in fact, I think it would be really helpful to the overall appearance. So I would ask you to do that. This garage door that's on the side, what is behind that and
There's it's a garage. It's a parking space
for cars?
for a car.
Yeah.
That's one of the 3 parking spaces there, and then there's 2 parking here and then 2 off-site. We have a traffic engineer that will be testifying at the planning board as to what is going on with the back out and that end of it.
Well, as I explained to you, that's not,
No, but we share your concerns, and at one
It's-
point in time, we had it all off the back
yeah.
and got flagged with that one real quick.
And that's what we would like to see now.
So a reduction of the 2 floors that were mentioned would bring this down to 33 feet?
That's correct. That's doable.
And
And understand that each apartment, or whatever you want to call them, they're 1,200 square feet each. They're 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartments. They're not the mega structures that are being built today.
No, I appreciate that, and I also appreciate that an 8-foot ceiling isn't exactly generous.
Well, for me, it is.
Well, I say, but not if you have NBA players staying in the apartment. But I think the reduction down to 33 brings it significantly lower. And I could
We can do
easily support a reduction down to by chopping off 2 more feet.
Be happy to.
can you also add 2 windows on that second floor on the one side by the?
There's a kitchen here on either side. It'd be very difficult. I'll try. We'd have to eliminate cabinets or something.
Well, you can put like I don't know where you have the sink area, maybe a smaller window.
Is that garage to scale?
Yes.
What's the height of that garage?
Height of the garage is 10 feet, like the height of everything else down there.
At the side?
Yeah,
Because I know that wall right here is 10 feet.
yeah, it is.
So we are talking 9, 9, and 8, right? Or 9, 8, 9, 8, and 8. 9,
9,
8, and 8.
yeah.
9, 8, and 8.
And what could be done to soften that side?
Trying to get there.
Have you possibly considered that it might not be the best real estate place, a realtor place in town, a retail place in town, because it's not a real easy place to walk to, and maybe you could have a first-floor apartment and a second-floor apartment?
Zoning would not permit that.
It's C1 zone district.
Can't have any on the first floor.
You have to have, you can have residential above a commercial use, but all residential is not permitted
And under zoning.
without a variance.
The building can go right to there's no setbacks on the C1 district, but it then leaves no room for parking.
And you said the apartments are 400 square feet?
1,200 square feet.
1,200.
400 square feet.
Yeah. 400.
That's my
That's
kitchen.
that's a living room and a dining room.
That's the size of my daughter's apartment in Aspen.
That's big
No,
in New
I
York.
appreciate that.
I can
lived
show
there.
you here that basically the first floor is 11 feet from floor to floor, so that could easily be reduced. I may even be able to reduce it to, well, it would be 10 foot, floor to floor with a 9-foot interior ceiling. The second floor is 10 feet, and that can be reduced, that's floor to floor with a 9-foot ceiling, that could be reduced to 8 feet. And then, of course, I have 8 foot here. So the that reduction can occur, and
I mean, the reduction I would be seeking would be for you to take 2 feet off the top.
2 feet, that's correct. And if you looked at the floor plans, see, there's a bank, I can possibly shift or the sink over here and put another window in there and put the range on the island. So that's something that can be considered to get more windows on that back wall. You'll see it,
Smaller window.
yeah. Or windows between the,
Of the sink area.
Well, we don't
Above the
want a
sink.
smaller window. We're trying to add windows.
I'm trying to keep the windows the same size and progression as it goes architecturally for it. Is,
I think putting the sink in the island is an attractive alternative. I don't. that
I
would-
may be able to work out a window in between the range and the refrigerator. And I will definitely look at that. I just wanted you to see the justification for no windows there, that's all.
Okay. And then finally, if you go back to the picture of the overall thing, if you, is there a way to just soften that peak at the very top?
Here?
You have the dormers coming in.
Structurally, I have a truss that's coming across here that creates that area. These are
No, I'm talking about the,
here.
yeah.
Well, that's going to be softened by coming down 2 feet.
Well, but you could get another foot out of it if you could.
I don't think I can get the ceiling height inside. That's, where there's a room here.
Your 8 foot right now comes to the top of that dormer, right?
Comes right to here.
Yeah, so you go straight across, and you could bring that peak down, in fact, to the dormer height, where the dormer's intersecting.
I think the best I could get would be to make it even with this ridge, because this is a 312 slope, so that I might be able to get, and I'm going to be careful, I might be able to get a foot out of it. I don't want to say something to you and not be able to, I'm certainly going to try if you recommend it.
Well, I don't want to belabor it, but remember, the whole issue here is trying to reduce the mass. It seems like there's a consensus in the group that the building is attractive, you've begun to do what we asked, and now we're just looking for every foot that we could get. And it seems to me that wouldn't damage the appearance of the building, it wouldn't affect the functionality of the building, if you were to bring that ridge down to where the dormer intersects.
Come on, dear. What do they say about computers not working when you want them to? So, it would make this slope where this line is right here somewhat lower. And really,
About a foot.
it can be done. Before, I wanted to take a look at it in 3D before I could.
As I said, I think that would help a little bit more on the mass, and I don't think it would change the aesthetic of the building at all.
On that side you're looking at right now, your kitchen could probably work out if you had 2 windows together in counter or sink area. So there'd be 2 on one apartment and 2 on the other, rather than the one in the middle. And that would give a little bit more light And that's a nice sunny side
That's
of
the,
the
sou-
building,
that's
too.
the southern side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to get rid of this window, that's in that alcove where the elevator is, but I will
Well,
try and put
you
them,
do a pair on either side.
yeah,
The more windows, the better.
I can try.
Uh-huh.
They won't be as high as these windows. By reducing everything by a foot, these windows are now going to be, instead of 6-foot-high windows, they're going to be 5-foot-high windows. So, you know, I don't want to misrepresent that either.
Yeah.
So what would actually, I think, even more help the nature of the massiveness of that wall is if there was a way you could get maybe just even a 1-foot recess in between the two gables, just to, so it's not one solid wall, just a slight recess in there.
Something in here to recess that slightly back?
Yeah, that would so significantly reduce the mass of that wall. And it would essentially look almost, it would be of the same character as the other elevations where you're breaking them up into a set of 2 plus a middle, 2 plus a middle.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Why is there only one window in the middle if these are symmetrical units?
They're not symmetrical.
They're not, okay.
That's my secret. No, actually, at the end of the garage is an elevator up into this front apartment. And that elevator only goes to 2 floors, it doesn't go all the way up. And that window is for the alcove when you come out of the elevator. Yeah. See, now you found out something.
Okay, where are we with this?
I think we've given a lot more advice, and I think we just got to wait until you see what you can do with this parking issue. We've all expressed the parking as one of our biggest concerns. So if you can get the city to go along with getting some of it in the back, I think that would certainly help the issue. And I don't know what else you can do to really get it out of the front, but maybe get, maybe even another variance to reduce the amount of parking. If it's only a 1,200 square foot apartment, you know, maybe you don't need as much parking.
God bless you. I agree with you.
And we'll make the presentation to the board. This is a walk-to
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
You have the city parking lot there, you have the mall, that has no parking, no on-site, off-site parking. So I think it is a walk-to place. There are all those parking spaces, there's the 2 designated. If we can, the residential may be a little more difficult because of the residential site improvement standards. But on the 2 commercial spaces, I think,
4 commercial spaces.
well, we have 2.
Yeah,
2 off-site, 2 on-site, and one of those is for an employee,
yeah,
which is not the same requirement as the C1 District Mall.
yeah, yeah.
It's different
Is
there.
there a concern with the garage in the front?
Well, like John said, we'd certainly like to see that sidewalk extend all the way across the front of that and have as much greenery as possible.
Please let me not be misunderstood. There's a 5-foot easement across the whole face of that is the sidewalk. This is not,
Oh, we can't see that in the
no,
rendering.
you can't see that.
Ah, okay, thank you.
If you look at the plans,
Does the site plan show that sidewalk?
yes.
Ah,
There it is.
I see, okay. So,
oh, okay.
So we're not cutting the sidewalk off at all. And that was part of the reason they gained the 2 parking spaces off-site from the city when they gave them that 5 feet.
So it seems like we should have a motion, though, to document what our
Well,
discussion is.
I agree. I mean, I think they're asking for conceptual approval, and I'd make a motion to grant conceptual approval, but I would condition it on the factors we've discussed here, which would be the lowering of the structure by 3 feet.
3 feet.
Did I say 3?
2 plus.
2 to 3, depending on whether the minimum
depends
of
on-
2.
I hear it. 3
Depends on the
feet.
ridge.
Yeah, so I say a minimum of 2, 3 if possible, depending on what you can do with the ridge. The changing of the window patterns on the south side to add an additional 2 pair of windows. And what have I missed?
well, the whole parking issue.
Yeah, but I don't think I can condition conceptual approval on that. So I've got 2.
I would say 2 plus feet, because you can get something out of that ridge, whether you can get
We'll go to 3.
That's why I said a minimum of 2, but.
I'll make it
looking-
work at 3, trust me.
3.
But
I hear you.
Okay, so 3 is bid, and that would be the condition of the conceptual approval, along with the windows. I have a feeling I missed something.
3 feet.
But I did say that. That would be the first condition. But it'd be a motion for conceptual approval.
Is it the posts?
Tony, I don't remember what it is now. It's probably, I'm having
Yeah.
a junior
We
moment,
need something,
and I'm making the
we
motion.
need something, the bollards to stop the cars from hitting those posts. That would be a zoning issue or something, but we like the posts.
So you
from a
would
historic-
come, when you come back after your visit to the other boards, you would show us, for the final approval, additional matters like the parking buffer, the parking bollards and protection, as well as additional greenery, if you're successful.
And I do agree that, going for the hitch and post look would really tie better to the neighborhood as opposed to just the regular industrial bollard.
I think that's sufficient for a conceptual approval, and then it's going to come back for final anyway.
Yeah, if I can find a good hitching post, I will submit those when we come back for the final.
They're available on the internet. You do have to search a
The ones
little
with the
bit.
horses' heads and all.
They're available.
I hate to be too much of a purist, but a hitching horse post is, not really appropriate there. A ballard maybe with a
Okay.
ring in it,
With a mushroom cap?
yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I want to make the conceptual approval hinge on the,
No.
on the restraint device at the head of the parking.
And my
I-
point-
It's nothing, if no one wants to second this motion, it's not going to go anywhere.
We have a motion.
My point regarding the bollards was just the fact that you had mentioned a carriage house look, and so
Yes.
that's why I suggested that.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I just want to reiterate the conditions of the motion, Jim. Lowering the height of the building by 3 feet. The window patterns on the east side will have 2 pairs of windows.
Yeah, I think it's the south side, but it's the side facing the
I'll put southeast
south
side.
side, because it's the sunny side.
And bollards to stop cars from interfering with the posts, right? That's it?
Yes.
Okay.
I accept that.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes,
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
listening
you.
to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Next order of business is Varadine, 289 Windsor Avenue, Block 1027, Lot 22. This is a contributing property, and we're going to discuss windows and doors.
Good evening. I'm John Varady, and this is Eric Varady. We're owners of the property at 289 Windsor.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're proposing to improve the windows. Generally, or basically, it's in 2 areas of the property. They happen to be on parts of the building that jut out from the main structure. And because of that, they're most susceptible to outdoor weather. And with the changes, what we want to do is really improve the energy efficiency of the house, if that's the right term. It's a house that's 100 years old. We've bought the property in 2002. We bought the property, it had 100, well, with the exception of sliding doors at the back of the property, they're all vinyl-clad windows. We've improved the property over the last 20 years. We made a substantial change to the property in 2016, and that was done in accordance with an application that we put in with the HPC in 2014. That included bumping up, to use a term, putting a second floor on the building. And that second floor was constructed, the application was approved by the HPC, and it was approved with Anderson Woodwright windows. And
That, I would just interrupt to make sure we're communicating. Anderson changed those Woodwright windows from wood window right around that time to a vinyl clad. So,
yes, yes.
so you have the windows that were approved, you said in 2014? Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
But installed in 2016 when we went ahead with construction.
And they were wood,
No, they're vinyl clad.
they're vinyl
The
clad.
wood core, wood inside.
Vinyl clad.
There's something, yeah, vinyl on the outside, or some sort of fiber material they have.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so, so we have a situation where the addition on the second floor is all brand-new vinyl-clad windows. The first floor is all vinyl-clad windows that are probably 40 years old. And as I mentioned, we're trying to, among other things, improve the energy efficiency of the house. The two areas we're talking about, one is a bump out on the side of the building, and that gets the most severe weather, particularly heat-wise in the summertime.
This one here.
No,
No.
no. It's the side view, three
On the east
double
side.
hang windows.
It's the east side elevation.
Okay. Gotcha.
This side.
Okay.
Look at that.
Okay. And there are five, well, there are actually six windows in that area. The second area is at the rear of the house. None of these are directly visible, with the exception of one window on the front of that bump out, are directly in the streetscape of the house. The second area, which is at the rear of the house, is not visible at all from the street. You have anything to add?
No, yeah, I would say the closest window is 30 feet from the street. It's on the side where those three windows are. Sun streaming in through that area during the summer, very, very hot. Shades are constantly drawn because of that fact. So looking to make those smaller, move them, more of like a single hung up above versus the double hung. And that side where the window is where you would see from the street is, you're about 12 feet from the closest house, which would be the Atwells. They're right directly next to us. So it's pretty much just a driveway between us with maybe 2 feet of grass on either side. So maybe for walking about 6 or 7 feet along the curb is when you might be able to see it on an angle. But they do match with the the second floor structure mirror exactly what we have on the second floor.
The issue is, this is an unusual situation because you have vinyl clad in a contributing building. And what we try to do is when you subsequently make changes or additions and improvements on a contributing building, it has elements that are not consistent with a contributing building. We try to encourage an upgrade to an appropriate product. So we have to be clear how we go forward here, because this would be really very unusual. Mixing the vinyl with the wood doesn't seem to make sense either. So it's a strange one-off situation. Also, right at the time when you were approved for the Anderson 400s, and by the time you installed them was right when the change took place. It went from a wood window to a vinyl-clad window. So it's a bit unusual. I would be reluctant to agree to put more vinyl on, because we're trying to revert a contributing house back to a full contributing status. On the other hand, you already have a lot of vinyl windows, and
I mean, there seems also to be maybe I'm getting my dates a little mixed up. We did talk about the conversion of Anderson Series to vinyl clad from wood. Also, the material that was submitted for your last approval, when that took place, it shows the property as not rated. And so there must have been a subsequent survey to the non-rated status. So when permission was given to do the vinyl clad, the building seemed to be unrated. And if I'm getting my dates correct, that means it was unrated when that permission was given. It was subsequently rated as contributing. And I believe that's what we have now on our hands. So it's actually changed status from being unknown to be contributing since the,
And contributing, as I said, puts the burden back to trying to improve it as opposed to continuing. So it's an interesting question. Let's go around the room and see what members of the HPC feel about it. I have kind of mixed feelings about it. John, you want to start off this time?
Sure. So I have, I think, a bigger issue with this than the material of the window, and that is the significant reduction in the size of the windows. Mainly because what it does is it significantly changes the historic character of the structure, and our standards specifically state that what was once there, you should replicate what was once there in size, material, and design. Because you're significantly altering the window-to-wall ratio that was present in this contributing structure. And it is, actually, I want to push back a little bit. Yes, from looking directly at the front of the house, you won't see it, but we don't see objects directly in elevation. They're three-dimensional, which means arriving from either side, the east or the west, we will quite clearly see the rhythm and the percentage of window opening to solid wall has significantly changed. So that's my big problem with this.
I'd like to listen to what everyone else has to say.
Corbin?
Well, I kind of agree with John on that. Reducing the window sizes is going to decrease the amount of light you have in the building, and it really interferes with the historic nature of the building. And you say that one in the front, the sun beams through it, and is that the only one in the front that the sun hits?
No, it's actually on the side of the
Or-
building. It's a direct southern exposure, so it's on the side.
Was that the only southern exposure window that you have?
There's numerous.
No, we have others, but this particular area is a so-called bump out. So it's got three sides on this bump out exposed to the exterior elements.
I mean,
So the most windows you're changing are on the east side, not on the south. You're changing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
And on the west side from.
and on the west side. You're reducing them by about 50% in area, which is really significant.
If I could go back, we're actually allowing more light into the house with the windows we're proposing. And that's because today, we've got such a heat buildup there. We basically have the shades down all the time.
Well, just to save a little bit of time, the issue for the HPC is the outside appearance. So the effect on the inside of the house, shades, no shades, more air conditioning, less air conditioning, is an interesting issue that is appropriate to have some discussion. But we're looking to maintain the historic look of this property.
I understand. Well, the other thing I was going to say, and you'll probably go back to what you just mentioned, is these homes were built as cottages. They're not very wide. And what we hope to do with that set of windows is really enhance whatever space we have to make it available for storage, because there's not much storage capacity in these older homes. And also, the windows match, as Eric mentioned, when you look at that east side elevation, the second floor, what's been done there, this kind of matches that. So it's not historic, but from an aesthetics viewpoint, that facade of the building, it's in concert, one floor to the other.
So I would point out,
Those windows there are on the east side, the two small windows up in the top are there because of the pitch of the,
exactly.
and you didn't have room to put big windows in there. So in order to get light in there, they put the half-size window. That doesn't mean to put half-size windows down on the first floor where we currently have full-size windows.
So I have a question. Is your concern that you're looking for more storage beneath the sill of the windows? Or is it the thermal properties of solar heat gain and heat loss, given the volume of that vulnerable place in the thermal envelope, or both?
It's both of those.
Okay. The second one you can solve. Technology of windows these days with low-E-coated argon-filled thermally broken windows, you can actually significantly improve by selecting which type of window glazing you put on which elevation, east, west, or south, but you're not really changing the south. The west is far more problematic than the east, and the east is where you're changing most of the windows. Because the altitude of the sun is very low in the afternoon from the west. That's after the house has had all day to heat up. In the winter, you want that heat. So what I'm trying to point out is that there are ways you can solve this with the technology of the glazing, but it doesn't solve your storage issue. But that's not really our purview. Our purview is, are you significantly altering the character-defining aspects of this historical structure? And I would argue that you are.
I did want to add one other thing, and at least from my viewpoint, I mean, that block that we live on, it's a wonderful street. I think roughly there were about 20 cottages built, I guess, around 1910 to 1920. And the most distinguishing characteristic, unfortunately, of those buildings were the glass front porches, of which there are only about 3 remaining. Other than that, there's nothing very, I don't know what the right term is.
Distinctive or?
Distinctive from a historic perspective about the buildings.
Well, let's continue around the room. Tom?
I'm agreeing fully with John. Changing to half-sized windows would be totally against our standards, as well as the Secretary of Interior's, which we live by, because that's part of the reason we've been declared a National Historic Landmark Community. And like John said, there's so many ways you can deal with windows for sunlight. I mean, we have some too that bring in an awful lot of light. And we have interior shutters that we can let the light in, or we can blind it. An awning on the outside is another way to do it. There's just a lot of things you can do to control that light. And to change a house like that to get more interior storage space, you're asking us to sacrifice an awful lot of the originality of that house to get storage space. You don't have to store everything in the house. So, I could not vote for that. I could live with staying with the vinyl-clad windows, since there's already that in place. That certainly would be a savings for you and not be any change in the insulation quality of it. But let's keep these windows the same size.
As you're going through taking comments, there's two aspects, right? There's the one that is on the bump out that we're talking about, and then there's the remaining towards the back of the house, which, I don't know, was probably an addition, maybe in the, I don't even know when that would have been, 50s, 60s. I don't think it was original in the house, but the part that's not visible from the streets.
And then there's three more on the other side, which was the porch, which was glass enclosed porches. And now you're going on one side of it, having those tiny little windows at the top. And that's not the sunny side, that's the other side. I'm sorry, as much as I like working with people and helping with what they want to do, that is a major, major change to this house.
You're saying to both aspects, the back?
Yes,
Well, let's continue around the room. Are you done, Tom?
yes.
Pip?
So I think I definitely agree as far as the side goes. I definitely agree that I don't think the vinyl clad is a problem, but I think the windows have to be the same as what they are today. And if light is the issue, obviously you can, do a lot of things about light. But I'm kind of confused about the back. So on the back here, these windows already exist?
That's correct.
These little windows up here are already there?
That's correct.
Right, and these windows, you want to make those windows like these windows? No.
Yes, they do.
Yes, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's in the back of the house.
Some of them, not all of them. The ones facing north would be replaced in kind. The ones on the east elevation and the west elevation have the windows higher up.
So if I'm looking at the back of the house, yeah, all right,
Current proposed.
yeah.
So
okay.
here's two more windows on either side of the back door that are the same size as everything else, and here they're being shown as being reduced to half windows. So you've got three sides of the houses that are having major, major window changes.
Let's continue around.
So what I was going to say is that if this already exists, these three windows up here at the top already exist.
That's correct.
And these two windows that are bigger, you want to change those to be these two little windows?
No. they're the
No.
same-
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
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 Well, I know it's hard to see.
That's-
Yeah.
And those windows at the
Pictures.
top are small because of the
Yeah.
Well,
roof.
it doesn't matter because of what? This exists right now.
Oh, I see.
Does this exist?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And this is bigger windows.
Sorry, I misunderstood you.
Okay, and these two big windows that are directly in the back next to the sliding glass door, you want to make these two little windows.
Correct.
I think that's fine, but I don't think it's fine on the side. I think on the side, because the side is visible to everybody, this back is not visible, and therefore, I think if you want to do it in the back, that it's acceptable, but on the side, I think it's not acceptable, to me. And the vinyl clad wood windows, I think, are not a problem.
I visited the site, and, that's really probably the only block in town that's all cottage-style buildings.
They moved them all from the Coast Guard.
Yes, and, I was hoping to see a building that had smaller windows. but unfortunately, I really didn't see any.
Right.
And as you had said, it doesn't really have historical significance, but cottages are historically significant unto themselves, and they have to remain true to themselves. And this is a big change, and I think, the windows are way too small.
Jim?
I think the change of this building from non-rated to contributing pretty much dictates that I couldn't support the use of vinyl windows, except for the fact that the horse went out of the barn in 2014. So I'm prepared to accept any replacement windows you do being consistent with the vinyl clad that you had. You did say they were vinyl clad?
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking Anderson's vinyl clad, the 400 series, and I'm sure, as John pointed out, you can achieve thermal protection, thermal changes by any number of variations in glazes from a major manufacturer. So you're not really going to sacrifice much by trimming down the size of windows. I think the reduction in size is insupportable, no matter where the windows are, front, back, side. I would approve this with the vinyl clad windows without a change in size.
I have to apologize to everyone. I have bronchitis and I was having trouble hearing, so I wanted to make sure I had the facts straight. I absolutely agree with most people, especially Pip. I have no problems with the very back windows, but I do not believe any of the others should be altered in keeping with the cottage style, which is intrinsically historic. I have no problems with the vinyl clad either.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we allow the replacement windows to be vinyl clad, to be consistent with windows already in the house and the windows they were replacing. But we deny the request to reduce the size of the window, the size of the windows on both sides of the house, but not the two windows framing the door on the rear of the building.
Second.
So you would allow the reduction in size in the rear by that? By
In
that.
the back, yeah.
2 windows.
Two, they're back.
Right.
We've always been a lot easier in the back of the house, like sliding doors.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Pisagno. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
I'll vote no.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Did Becker vote? Oh, he's alternate tonight.
He just talks, doesn't vote.
I would vote no. It's easy to do that because it's going to pass with the vote the way it is. But I would just add that this is approved tonight as a really very unusual circumstance with the Anderson Woodwright change in mid-course around the 2014-2016 period, and that we would not normally approve a vinyl-clad window on a contributing property. So this is an exception due to a unique circumstance, and the record should show that.
I agree with that.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the vote is 4-2.
4-2.
Or two.
So there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is getting kind of strange because it's not recorded, so I'm not sure that's going to be captured. Next order of business is 1009 Kearney. This is a non-contributing house, and this is demolition. And it's going to then be followed with what the replacement will be. So with that, I'll turn it over. You know the drill.
Pam Fine from Fine Architecture. I'm here on behalf of my clients who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, Scott Mareka and Marianne McLaughlin. This is actually my first ever demolition. So I would appreciate any guidance or input as we proceed. But I do want to mention that we actually didn't want to demolish the house. I've been working with them for almost 2.5 years now. I measured the house, photographed it. I have drawings for a renovation. The house, unfortunately, inside is so pieced together that it would basically require a full gut. The first floor is, it has 6'9" height ceilings. The second floor has 6'9" height ceilings, so you cannot jump. So there's a lot going on with the house that unfortunately, we tried. We went through the motions, and there really wasn't, it's gonna take too much to save it and renovate it and make it into a house that's worth living in. So that's why we're here tonight for this first part, to demolish this home.
You have the 9 points.
I do, yeah. So I pulled it off of the website. Do you want me to just read each one?
Yeah, read each one and then
Elaborate?
a brief response.
Okay.
Each one of the questions.
Okay.
Yes.
So 9 points of demolition. Number 1, it's historic, architectural, culture, and aesthetic significance. The house is actually a non-contributing building, so there is no historical, architectural, culture, or aesthetic significance to it. Number 2, its current and potential use for those purposes currently permitted by this chapter or for the use purpose. Right now, it's a single-family home. It's barely functioning as a single-family home. There's a lot of issues with safety inside as well that I can elaborate on if you would care to know, but I believe there's no use for this home as it stands today. Number 3, its importance to the municipality and the extent to which its historical or architectural value is such that its removal would be detrimental to the integrity of the historic property or district and the public interest. Again, it's deemed non-contributing, so its removal will not be detrimental. Number 4, the extent to which it is of such old, unusual, or uncommon design, craftsmanship, texture, or material that it could not be reproduced or could be reproduced only with great difficulty. I don't think it should be reproduced, but there's nothing worth reproducing in the home, unfortunately. Number 5, the extent to which its retention would increase property values, promote business, create new positions, attract tourists, students, writers, historians, artists, and artisans, attract new residents, encourage study and interest in American history, stimulate interest in study in architecture and design, educate citizens in American culture and heritage, or make the municipality a more attractive and desirable place in which to live. I vote no. Number 6, the impact of its removal upon the historic district, again, non-contributing, so no impact at all. Number 7, the structural soundness and integrity of the building and the economic feasibility of restoring or rehabilitating the structure so as to comply with the requirements of the applicable building codes. Again, I already touched on that. There's a lot of deficiencies within the existing home. Number 8, the compelling reasons for not retaining the structure or improvement at its present site, the proximity of the proposed new location and its accessibility to residents of the municipality, and the probability of the significant damage to the structure or improvement as a result of relocation. I don't think there's anything worth keeping in the home. No reason to relocate as well.
It's not being relocated.
It's not being relocated, so. And finally, 9, the compatibility, nature, and character of the current and the proposed surrounding areas as they relate to the intent and purposes of this article, and whether the proposed new location is visibly compatible in accordance with the standards set forth herein. We're not moving it, so I don't think that really applies to this
I think
situation.
8 and 9 usually don't apply.
Yeah. So that should do it.
Do I have a motion?
I think
Move
that
that we
the,
grant application.
I will make a motion for demolition.
you're all falling over each other, but one of you made it, the other one can second it.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes,
Ms. Bisagno?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Okay, so now into the fun part. So the next packet is the proposed new structure. I'll walk through the design first, and then I'll elaborate on some of the materials that we've chosen. P1 is basically showing you the zoning conformance schedule. You'll see we have a lot of nonconformities, so we will be going to the zoning board for variances. That's why tonight we're asking for conceptual. On the proposed site plan, you'll see where the building is located. It's fairly close to the existing building in size and shape, but we are pushing that forward closer to the street, so you'll see that change on the site plan. You'll notice how I have the parking on the right side. We have tire strips. You'll see those triangular designations. I am showing parking pushed past the front porch, so they're not hanging out in front of the home. And we have 3 parking spaces, so you'll see the tire strips going further back for that reason. But basically, we have a stepping stone walkway, the brick tire strips, a front porch that has a set of stairs that goes up to a second floor front porch. That was one of the features that they actually enjoyed in their current home, and they wanted to carry through to this new design. So I'll turn the page, and you'll see the floor plan a little more in detail. So on P2 sheet, we have the first floor plan. You'll see that large front covered porch, the off-center stair, and the side stair that takes you up to the second floor deck, kind of tucked along the left side towards the, closer to the middle of the building. On the first floor, we have the 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. The front entry is again off-center towards the right. You'll have a family room in the front, a small laundry room, and the stair off to the right side. And then if you see along the left side of the first floor, we have the AC, the shower, tucked behind that landing and the stair. On the second floor, again, we have that front deck. Some of it's open, some of it's covered. You'll see in the elevations a little more clear. But we have our main living, dining, kitchen area at the top of the stairs, a small powder room, and then your master suite situated in the back. And I'll go to the P3 sheet. You'll start to see the elevations. The front entry on the proposed front elevation, we have the brick veneer piers, we have columns with historical architectural details. We are using some standing seam metal roof. Tried to pull some ideas from the surrounding neighborhood. It's kind of a mishmash hodgepodge of architectural styles. I have some photos later on in the packet, but we try to keep it fairly classic, going with more of like a vernacular Victorian look with the styling of the home. And you'll see along the right side, it's a flat wall, but we try to add some architectural details to break up the flatness with the roof overhangs, the bracketry. You'll see on the main eaves, we have the corbels. So we try to add some pop and interest into the home, but keep it simple at the same time. And we'll go to the next sheet, P4, proposed rear elevation. Again, we have the gable going straight through, very simple design. And then along the left side, we do have a little bit more embellishment where we have the kitchen window bay, which has its own gable, some more jogs and things like that. So it's a very interesting left side elevation. And we have the double decks, you'll see that there too. So here I'll elaborate a little more on the materials, since I have those outlined here. So roof material, we're thinking of going with the GAF, asphalt roof shingles, and we'll have the standing seam metal on the front porch on that second floor. Roof overhangs, fascia, we're hoping to do AZEK. My clients are hoping for a maintenance-free exterior, similar to what's there today, but just an upgraded package in that. Siding, they're looking to do hardy shingle siding. We also have some AZEK board and batten accents in the gable roof ends. Corner boards, AZEK or hardy board would be fine. Windows, Anderson 400 series, double hung and awning. Window casing trim, AZEK again. Doors, they're looking to do the wood entry doors with side lights. I have a photo later on in the packet. And we do have one sliding glass door, which would be an Anderson 400 series. Columns would be AZEK rep columns with cap and base trim details. Railings, they're looking to do Intex railing with a mahogany cap. Decking, they would like to do Ipe. Foundation would be brick veneer over the CMU block. And then you'll see between those piers, we have the AZEK slats below the deck. HVAC units and shower enclosures would be AZEK as well. Driveways, walkways, brick paver, tire strips, and the bluestone stepping stones that I mentioned in the site plan. They do have a small fence that runs up along the left side of the property that they would like to keep. It's a little white picket fence, about 3 feet tall. Exterior lighting, there is a photo later I'll show you, and there are no sheds or outbuildings proposed. The next sheet, you'll see, starting off, that is the Intex railing that they like. It has a mahogany cap. The Intex is really a nice product. It's not like a shiny vinyl look. It has a matte finish. I'm always a stickler for details, and I love the way the handrails attach to the newel posts. They don't have those bulky connectors, so I do like that about it. I think it would really be a nice addition to this home and keep it complementary to more of a historical appeal. The second picture is the new mahogany wood front door. You'll see they want about a 3/4 light and also the side light on the side. And then the new light fixture, you'll see that last photograph attached. Something a little more updated, but still like a lantern style type. And finally, the P6 is just showing the first picture is showing the existing house in photo form, and then the next 5 photographs are of the surrounding houses in the neighborhood. And you'll see it's kind of, you know, a hodgepodge of architectural detail or architectural styles. You know, you have some 3-story buildings, you have a 2-story building, you know, not anything, you know, one set style. And that's about it.
Thank you. Pam, you're proposing to elevate this property 2 feet above the base flood elevation?
Yes.
And that'll give you, you're going to maximize the height at 35 feet.
Yes.
Do you have a survey that shows the flood elevation?
Oh, like a flood elevation certificate?
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, it might be on here, actually. Yes. Set it on the bottom square. It'll list all the heights.
Basic flood elevation is 9. Thank you. Did you,
No, I was just waiting for you to say go around the table.
I'll take your word that it's 9.
it says 9, and it's current. So thank you.
You're welcome.
This look in the front that you're going for
Yes.
is just horizontal slats?
Yes.
Is that it?
We're open to anything. If you would rather have a lattice look, we could go that direction as well.
Well, we'll see, because we're gonna go around the room, but I think lattice, a privacy lattice look is more appropriate
Okay.
in Cape May. It's just hard to tell from this picture, the way it's shown.
Yes.
Also, if you didn't want to do lattice, I would see vertical being a little bit more interesting, but I don't feel that strongly about it. John, you want to start us off here?
Sure. Clearly an improvement to what is being demolished.
Thank you.
So I really only have one concern. And if we look at all of the surrounding houses in that neighborhood, none of them have two-story porches like this. So that, I could be convinced that a two-story porch would be acceptable if there wasn't that additional bay of extension further to the west. Because that whole front elevation is, as opposed to the house being 3 bays wide, the whole front elevation is 4 bays wide, and it's, forgive me for saying this, but it's starting to look like more it belongs in Avalon or Stone Harbor. So all I did was I just did this. I just covered this up with my hand, and I said, oh, now look at that. That looks like it belongs in Cape May. So looking at your floor plans, I think there's a fairly easy solution to this. Simply deleting this one bay, but you still need to get the stair here.
Oh, I see. So you
now
just
if you look at
jogged
the
it.
west elevation, if you did that, you could simply slide that whole stair up so that all of that railing stuff
Right.
could be diminished in terms of its, I would say, impact on its reduction of a historical character.
Right. Okay.
all.
Gotcha.
Did you follow all that?
No, I wish I could see where John was going, but he's so far away and what he's blocking
So
off.
if you look at
Talking
the
about
floor
the,
plan,
are you
and the
looking
front
at
elevation?
P3?
Look at the front elevation. West is to the left. You're looking
Yeah,
at the
so you're-
south elevation.
On P3,
Yeah,
P3,
on
yeah,
P3.
left side.
So if you were to simply take your hand and cover everything to the left of the far left column, right? Yeah, do exact, right? So you eliminate that bay that's all the way up to the front of the south elevation. You still need a stair, but you could push that stair element back a full bay with just enough space to get from the porch onto the landing of the stair. Therefore, it looks more like an attachment than just a full bay extension of the width of the house.
Tom,
I see.
take out that square, basically. Push it back.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so Tom, in plan, when I'm putting these two X's, you just eliminate those.
Yeah, okay.
And reconfigure, and you could actually take that whole stair, if you look at the west elevation, see, it would actually take this whole stair element and just shift it one bay, so that the amount of railing and extended kind of extra stuff that doesn't look like it's part of a historical house could be eliminated. Or at least the character of this historical neighborhood. Yeah.
It's so easy to go after John. He's got so much knowledge.
Or very difficult.
It is. I agree with him, that I think that if you do that, that it will have so much more charm. And my other problem is also with Warren's, the garage doors. I object to those.
Let's see.
Yeah, I had to keep looking to figure out, is that a garage or isn't it?
Lattice.
Oh, okay. Below the
it's
deck,
that-
you're
Yeah,
saying?
uh-huh.
Gotcha. No, that's not a garage door. It's just,
Oh, that's, oh, okay. I thought
Yeah.
that was garage. See, now I didn't know.
it's just
Okay.
to cover the void between the.
Right, oh, no, I much prefer lattice, yeah.
Yeah.
I have seen that around town and don't care for it
Okay,
at all. Yeah.
that's fine.
Corbin?
I must admit, when I first looked at this, well, are we building a duplex or for a conversion to a duplex? Yeah,
Yeah.
with the way it is. But I agree with John, you cut that off in the front and move that forward. And go for the privacy lattice. And I like the front door. I really do. Actually, it could almost be very similar to a door I put on a house just behind this house. So,
Pam, could your sliding glass doors on the second story have some breakup in them,
Some
maybe
mullions?
like 8 panels? You have 4 over 2 over 2 in the others, or 4 panels. If that became like 8 panels in there, it would, help it not look as much like a sliding door.
Okay, sure.
And on porch railings, your system that you show here in the back looks like it minimizes materials and maximizes the amount of light and air that goes through them. We've generally requested with railing systems like that, that the railing at least be, or the balustrade at least be 1.5 inches and no more than 3 inches between the pieces. That makes it fill in a little bit more and gives it that beefy look that would have been very typical to go along with the lines and the period that you're following with the rest of the house.
Gotcha. And Intex is nice because it's all custom made, so I can specify the widths and spaces.
Width and dimensions,
Yep.
I love the idea of a railing cap. If they made it a little more beefy than that too,
Okay.
that would dress it up. You have to teach them how to varnish.
Every year.
Yeah.
actually, you don't varnish, you use decoil on it.
Could probably get it out of ePay too and make it match the decking. Yeah.
Pip,
So I don't have anything to add over anything everybody else has said.
Jake?
Okay, I mean, first I applaud you for, taking down a typical Jersey Shore house, and you really tried to make this fit into the fabric of the neighborhood.
Thanks.
But the glaring thing that I picked up right away was what Mr. Carroll did. Everything else is 2 over 2, and those doors needed something there.
Gotcha.
Additionally, I mean, for the reason that you are trying to make it fit in better, I agree, and it was, I think Pip mentioned about the horizontal slats. And in my opinion, looking in the streetscape photos, there were several other properties, historic properties, that did have the lattice.
No problem.
Yeah, a lot of them have.
Very, very, very minimal. I wanted to say that I thought that the lattice situation is going to solve what for me was a mixture of too much horizontal and too much vertical, and it begins to look kind of like a checkerboard. But when you have the lattice, which is much more typical, that's going to solve that overly
Now, would
this
you,
way and then this way and then this way. And
would
then
you
this way.
install the lattice on a 45 or vertically up and down?
To me, it makes no real difference. I prefer the vertical.
Okay.
But I mean, the lattice is the big improvement because it gets rid of this confusing and overly complicated.
And it's privacy lattice we're talking about,
Yeah,
right? Not with the big gap.
right, the smaller, tighter, yep.
Yes.
75% wood, 25% see-through.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with all the comments that were made. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the application be approved with the alteration of the base being done with privacy lattice, that the section of the porch that's bulging out in the front be removed as demonstrated by John, and that the sliding glass doors be at least divided into several panels, maybe 4 or 8 panels, whichever is available in that, and that the railing system also follow our guidelines of 1.5 inch balustrades and no more than 3 inches between balustrades.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Stevenson. Ms. Campbell?
Yes,
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes,
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes,
Mr. Testa?
Yes,
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
thank you.
Next order of business, Mahalo Cape May LLC, 1033 Beach Avenue. This is Block 1101, Lot 1. It's a non-contributing building. And the discussion will be about roofs, fascia, windows, doors, railings, decking, and solar panels.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank the committee for hearing us tonight. Can you hear me? I think
Yes,
so.
you do have,
Oh, no.
your voice doesn't carry, so you do have to speak into the mic.
Could you both introduce yourselves, please?
Names?
My name is Mark Robbins, and I am the development manager for Mahalo.
My name's Steve Tomasetti. I'm the president and principal architect of
There's about 7 total changes to the exterior of the building that we would like to make. None of them are what we're thinking are material or big changes, but that are all required to come before the board. The first change, which we have in Exhibit 1, 2, 3, and 4, is that we want to
I think if you back away from that speaker just a little bit, it'll be clearer.
We've given you a crooked microphone, so it's tough to gauge, but you're kind of over-modulating there.
How's that sound now?
Oh, excellent.
Okay. The first change that we would like to make is to the existing pole. The existing deck that surrounds the pole is in fact very small for the size of the property. We would like to extend the deck approximately 20 feet to the north, and it would cover the 2 existing shuffleboard platforms that are there. So what we're doing is we're actually increasing the pervious coverage once we put the new deck in. It's going to be just a deck where the water will just filter through the deck. The last part of the pole is we have a rain curtain coming over the existing pole, which is just a simple architectural feature. It drips water on the pole. That's shown in exhibit number 4. Mr. Carroll, it looks like you have a question for me, so I'm just going to pause for a second. Go ahead.
I'm still having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like
It's
every
just too close.
word ends with a deep sound.
We've given him the worst microphone.
Yeah,
Back off just a teeny bit. There you go. There you go.
Okay, so I hope that sounds a little bit better. Oh, we're all good. So on, I think it is Exhibit 4, you're going to see a picture of the rain curtain drawn across the existing pole. It was our understanding from the land planning board, which we have to go to get the pole to put that deck on, that we had to come here first and have your approval to expand the deck over as far as we're taking it. And if you look on, the deck is 2 sides of the deck around the pole don't even have enough room for chairs. They're just walkways. Actually, the western side and the southern side are very, very narrow. So there's very, very limited seating. The next change that we would like to make.
Could I just ask,
Yes.
what is a rain curtain?
So the best way I can describe it is it sort of is like a pergola that goes over the pole, and it just drips water, so hence rain curtain. It's only a single line of water. It gives a feel of running water, to the pole. It just gives it a little,
Yeah, as I said.
yeah, I want to say, feature to the pole. They're called rain curtains.
Okay.
Okay?
How high is that?
The curtain wall is about, I'm going to say 8 feet. I'd ask you not to hold me to that exact 8 feet. And then there's a pergola structure that sits right above it that might come up another 6 to 12 inches.
Visible from the street. Go ahead.
The next part of the change, so we're not making a lot of changes to the building. The roof is about 3/4 of the way through its useful life right now. It will have to be replaced sometime within the next 10 years. Since we're there now, we'd like to go in there and put a standing seam roof in to cover all the roof, and that would care for that issue. Behind there, we just recently had a public hearing on another issue, and there seemed to be a lot of public interest in doing things such as solar panels. So we are proposing solar panels on top of the standing seam roof. That's in Exhibit 6 and 6.1. Number 7 shows 3 things that we'd like to do to the building.
Can we hold up?
Certainly, Chairman.
So the orientation for this street is,
The way I'm looking at it, I think that's Madison.
It's Madison
and this
Avenue
is- and Beach.
Yes, Madison and Beach, you're looking from the south.
Yeah. So,
North, with
so
the south side is
it's
the-
visible from,
Yeah, it's highly
from
visible,
both.
totally visible.
Go ahead, sorry.
Exhibit 7 shows 3 different small improvements. One is a walkway balance, 2 new doors to the rooms, and then on the railings, we have a decorative piece that fits in the center of each railing section. And finally, on exhibit number 8, the lobby door and windows will stay in their identical place, but it would be a new door and new windows. And the lobby mansard, we would probably change the slope of it a little bit. It's coming down kind of severe, almost at about 70 degrees. We'd probably make it, it'd probably be, feel a little bit more appealing if it wasn't at such a high slope level. And that's everything. So, most of the improvements to the building are being done to the interior rooms, which is not, covered by the board. The little things that we're doing to the outside are areas that just feel like it needs a little bit more quality to it, very, very similar to what we did years ago at the Palace, just making the balconies look a little bit nicer with awnings and new railings and so forth.
What about the doors, the room doors?
The room doors are going to be a slatted room door. Is a picture in there behind number 7, giving you an example of what the room doors would look like.
Did you have a catalog cut of those doors?
No, so we have to have the doors made custom. We're looking for a solid door. That's not a slatted door that you can see through, in any way.
So it's really solid, it just has the appearance.
Oh, yeah, it looks, so there is not a catalog sheet for it. We're currently looking for a source to have those doors made.
You're looking for a final
Yes.
tonight.
I thought you had said that other approvals were needed. You're going to need variances. Did I understand that
No,
correctly?
well, the only variance that we need is for extending the deck. So we're actually reducing the impervious area.
Well,
And
the only point I was making is that usually when action is needed by other city bodies, we we pass on conceptual approval and not final approval. It's the only,
Yeah, your application is marked final.
Yeah.
And
did not realize
got to
that,
circle the
Mr.
conceptual
Sessions.
part.
Before we go around the room, we may as well deal with the elephant in the room. And that's the solar panels. The ordinance on the solar panels is quite clear, that if they're visible from the street or the side yard, they're not appropriate in Cape May. And the panels that you're showing here, with the exception of this little bit in the back, are visible from Madison and from Beach, and are not consistent with the ordinance.
We're currently investigating a panel that's actually looks like the existing roof today. It is not a panel, they're just pieces that fit in on top. Would those be acceptable?
No, and not at the moment. This is a non-contributing building, but in the historic district, the panels that are available today, they look like slate or shingles. In fact, still a pretty high gloss and are not appropriate. And also, on the installations that I've seen, is it includes areas of the roof that are just regular shingles, and then these look like stripes or something. I don't think the technology is there for approval at the moment. Your exposure that you're looking to take advantage of, unfortunately, is not consistent with the ordinance. So I would think technology has got to come a long way before.
And that's a city ordinance, not a historic, an HPC ordinance.
It is a city ordinance. It was developed by the Historic Preservation Commission.
Right.
But yes, and everything that we talk about, in fact, the standards book that is available to you is part of the zoning ordinance. So, it's not a wish list. There's two different kinds of historic preservation commissions. There's a weak and a strong. This is a strong HPC, which makes it part of the zoning ordinance. And so the ordinance on solar panels, in fact, is a city ordinance. We administer it,
Yeah,
but it's,
understandable.
yeah. So,
I mean, the unfortunate issue here is that unlike some of the roofs that we've approved them for, which are flat roofs and which are not viewable, not visible from the streetscape, you're kind of the victim, but you have a roof that is there, and that roof is, with its pitch, showing a side that you want to put panels on, makes them directly visible. I mean, you just see it. I mean, I think your picture's pretty accurate. It's a bunch of rectangular pieces that are going to contrast with the standing metal seam roof, and it's not anywhere close to what we've allowed.
and then it's exacerbated by the fact that the promenade is across the street.
I mean-
So now you're elevated and you can even see.
Well, everyone sees the facade of this building. It's Beach Avenue, and you got Madison Avenue. So they're looking at that, and that's the angle of your roof that's facing the public. It's your best sunlight. We understand that, but it's not.
So how are we able to approve everything but the solar panels or
Yeah, we
conditional?
Yeah.
We'll go around the room. And normally I speak last,
Yeah, thank you.
because I don't want to undue influence on this august group. Solar panels, skip right to the chase because we're all in concert with that. So with that, all the other issues, we can go around the roof, around the room. We will need to see, for example, the standing seam metal roof, we will need to see catalog cut sheets. We look for
They're in there.
no higher than 1 inch
Okay.
seam and things like that. But let's go around the room first. Jim, you want to start?
Well, I was afraid you're going to have me do that because you've been having John do all the rest.
I've been alternating.
No, I
does
thought,
that.
anyway, no big deal because I won't spend much time. We've already made the point about the solar panels. And frankly, I think the deck is a good improvement, and you obviously have it as a functional necessity to accommodate chairs. I have no problem with that. I've never seen a rain curtain before, but it doesn't offend me that you want to sprinkle people in your pool with that curtain, and I frankly don't have any problems with your redoing your roof or with the angles that you make in terms of the changes, nor the doors, although I think that I would never choose those appliques. I think that's within your discretion to put on the railing. So I guess I have no really negative comments that would prohibit conceptual approval for the application.
Yeah, I think as you progress towards final, I think we'd like to see maybe an elevation of the rain curtain, see what it would look like from the street, because, we just have this little aerial photograph, and you really can't see how big it is. And additionally, I know you have 6 panel doors on the property right now.
That's correct.
And, I mean, that's probably more fitting in the Cape May look, but are you going for a tropical look? I mean, with the louvered and the applique with the palm design?
As the name Mahalo
Yeah.
Hawaii, it's a theme. It is a new brand for us, and that kind of softens the brand, and that's the reason.
And again,
for
it's not contributing, so it's really
For
not.
the louvered doors.
It's his choice.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Pip,
I don't really have any comments.
Tom?
The rain curtain has a little bit of like a carnival look to it, which is something that Cape May is certainly not famous for. We try to play down things that have made Wildwood famous and things like that. That's an element. Maybe if you give us a better picture of that, we would understand it. But again, it's 8 feet up in the air and then higher than that. So it's going to be a highly visible element. And it certainly is not a necessity to help people enjoy a swimming pool to have something like that in it. So I think with what I know about it right now, I would prefer not to see it. If I jump to the railing systems, on page, let me see, I'm now on section,
7.
or section 5, and I'm looking at your new railing system that has some kind of decorative panel in the middle of it, which sort of looks a little bit like Miami Beach, kind of decorative trim, and not typical of anything associated with the 19th century. Now, what would look nice in that, if you broke that railing system up with having like a little Chippendale type of design in the center with some cross pieces to break it up a little bit, and use that as a uniform way to do it. I think that would fit much better than having all those panels running through it. And I'd like a little bit better description of what the valance looks like that's coming down from the roof, that's above the railing system.
So I'm going to try, so if anybody did a drive-by, we have a sample up right now, just so that we could see what it looks like. So you do have the opportunity to take a look at it.
Okay.
There's only one section, done. And what we've learned from putting that one section up, I think we came down with 7 pieces of wood.
With louvers?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We're not going to come down 7. We're actually going to, when you come down 7, it came down too low, so we're going to take about 2 of those off.
Okay, so it's just breaking some of that light that's,
Yeah, so I think the best way is, rather than me try to describe it, I'll let Steve try
Yeah.
to describe it, is if you could just do the drive-by, it's, so you know where the front part is, where the office is. It's that first row, second floor, and it's right.
okay. I got you now.
Yeah.
I couldn't detect that from looking at here, but I'll go look at your sample.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
If I could clarify something, the railing system is not new. These are just, the applique, we're calling it, is a decorative piece put at the center of each railing section. Just to
Attaching it.
clarify.
Yep.
You're attaching it to the
Yes.
existing.
The existing railing is actually in pretty good shape.
And do you have a catalog cut of what that applique looks like?
There is not a catalog sheet for it. What we were going to do was have it custom cut. We were going to create a design very similar to the one that you see and put that on there. So there's not a standard one there in the market anywhere.
I think the whole thing would look better without adding those to it.
I'm sorry, did you say you were a non-applique man? Is that what I just heard?
Well,
Non-applique, that's what you're
well, it's
suggesting.
not, it looked like an applique treatment on it, but I thought, it doesn't have a design element that I see in any other
Yeah,
period
well,
of
it's
Cape May's history.
not a lot of Hawaii in Cape May.
Yeah,
It does look Polynesian, yes. It doesn't look Cape May.
Yeah.
yeah.
One point, though, I think is important, and that is when these custom cuts or custom designs are made, you really should try and give us a good picture with dimensions and materials so we can see the thing.
Well, I think what we could do is actually bring the physical sample to you.
Maybe it's a suggestion that, palms were quite popular during the Victorian period, and people had them on their front porches, et cetera. I don't know whether there would be some kind of a design that would look like a palm from that period that would tie in more historically. Something to consider.
That's something that interests me a great deal, and I will look into that.
Yeah.
So the
But
next-
this design right now is very modern looking. Where if you did some kind of an oval and it was, representation of a Victorian era palm.
I think putting an applique, like maybe what Jake is suggesting, is good because it breaks up whatever, not these Hawaii ones, but something like that I think is good because it breaks up what's the extreme monotony of these railings. It's just like they almost look jail-like. So breaking that up, I think, adds a lot to the building, but maybe not with this particular design.
Well taken.
The idea of matching your name to the Hawaiian vibe is simply not consistent with Cape May.
But
It's-
as Mr. Stevenson said, there may be something historically
Yeah, that you could
that,
find.
that you may like.
Yeah. Are you through?
Yes,
Corbin?
Now, the valances you're going to put over top of underneath the standing seam roof, which your catalog says they can get an inch or inch and a half standing seam. But these catalogs, the picture you have here shows that there'll be 3 panels between each column. That's, and it's going to be 1 foot 8 inches down from the roof, and they're slanted louvers, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is that where you said you only have 7?
Yeah, we're not going to have, how many do you have now?
He's going to reduce it
Yeah,
Yeah, there's 7 interior.
to 5.
the 5.
My turn? I get to go before John
No.
instead of after him?
I'm trying to flip through here. My question is this door to this remake of the office area. Now, is the office area 2 floors, or is it,
The office area is 1 floor. That the next floor up is actually it's an apartment. It's not like a standard room. It has a kitchen and a living room. and a bedroom. And then above the apartment, there's just a sun deck. So interior, all that is staying exactly the same.
But you're putting this sliding door, automatic sliding door in there.
Yes, where the existing front door is right now.
Will that be a double-door system?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're changing, okay.
And the two windows that are going in are identically sized to the two windows that are there today.
And the canopy over the window's gonna have the same standing seam as
Yes.
the rest of the roof? I think that's all I have right now.
Okay, Dee?
Well, I agree with Pip. I think there should be an applique, but not necessarily that one. I think the deck is an improvement, and I know how much the kids would love a rain curtain especially. Is there any other way you can create this effect without that large arch? Do they have any things that come up, like the fountains or anything that would?
Well, yes, there are. I mean, there are all sorts of pool features. This is one the adults seem to like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as well. It doesn't create a lot of noise. It doesn't create.
You don't step on it, right, any of
It's
this?
just a little something. I mean, every pole, a lot of poles are just the regular square poles. So we're just trying to give it a little bit more flavor.
I can understand that. It's just like Tom says, this coming up and over is, I guess it's a detraction, but I can understand why you would want the rain curtain. But my big thing is with the appliques, I just think that they should be fitting with the town and the historical aspect and all of that.
Thank you.
Is there any way you could furnish a picture of the pool or a pool with a ground view of the rain curtain, so we could see what it looks like?
Yes, sir. I think
Looking
we.
at it from the top,
Yeah.
it doesn't give us much an idea what it,
I think we can do a better job at that for you.
John?
So thank you for organizing this so clearly, which could have been an extremely complex thing to understand, given the 8 pieces or 7 pieces. 2 questions and maybe a thought. Are the valances and medallions also in the 6 bays facing west or only the south?
They're facing south and west.
And west, okay, so it's coming around the corner, okay, good. About the medallions, I actually went somewhere else. Applique, I'm assuming that you're choosing this stylized palm because it is consistent with some sort of branding for Mahalo and a Hawaiian theme. Is that what the intent?
We're not using it anywhere else,
I see.
but it softens the round.
Oh, then that really opens up the door to, so, but the idea is it's a branding thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Trying to get that image. Well, pineapples were not an unusual motif used during Victorian times. I suspect you could probably find some really beautiful, stylized Victorian-ish pineapple medallions, which would maybe marry the two together. Just a thought.
Well taken, yes.
And lastly, I have to totally and completely applaud your desire to want to put photovoltaic panels on the roof of this building, and boy, I would love it. Been in that game for a very, very long time, and the technology is increasing and shifting and changing so fast and so dramatically that I'm wondering if by the time you implement this, there may be some sort of reasonably acceptable visual integrated PV. I mean, the latest one I saw were PV panels, or PV that was actually integrated into what looked like, it's not maybe appropriate here, it looked almost exactly like cast clay tiles. And the only difference was the color was a little different, but they didn't have the sheen that Warren was talking about. So, boy, if you guys could find something that visually was acceptable that we could use in such a visible place, this could maybe help transform some of our thinking about how to incorporate PVs into these structures that are at least within the historical character of the town.
So are you able to put that in your verbiage of your potentially conditional approval to look for something like that?
So it's just my suggestion. Apparently, it's in violation of the town's ordinance, but my point would be that if you could make a case for it by finding something that you could argue for, maybe there's some potential to transform that ordinance in ways that could allow us to, at some point, we're going to need to incorporate PVs in this town, and the question is how and when. And I think Warren's correct, the technology isn't quite there yet, but boy, it's right on the edge, from my perspective.
It would basically require a review of the definition of solar panel.
Yeah.
And I mean, that might change, and you might be the people leading the charge, but right now, solar panels are what we're dealing with, and they're not acceptable.
Yeah, and I'm calling them integrated photovoltaics.
That
So-
may be your new definition for the ordinance.
exactly.
But I mean, that's our problem. The definition is too far. Definition reflects
Yeah.
not where we're going, but where we sort of were.
The problem with that, though, just so we have full disclosure, if you were to find a technology at some point in the future that looked like a slate tile, and you couldn't possibly tell the difference between that and slate, that would be in conflict with a standing seam metal roof.
Right.
Because you're not going to be able to put that over top of that. So then you have to reverse.
Actually, my point was not to try and recommend using a photovoltaic integrated clay tile. That was simply an example of the way integrated photovoltaics are now starting to replicate more common materials. And at some point, and I don't think it's in the distant future, we're going to see them on standing seam metal roofs and not be able to tell the difference.
So,
That sort of suggests, how much life did you say was left in the roof? Sort of suggests maybe you want to, John, are you talking year, 2 years, 3 years?
So how quickly photovoltaics have moved forward it's just so fast. I mean, when we first started looking at them, paybacks was 25, 30 years. Now they're more like 5 to 6 years. And it's not just the cost of kilowatt hours of electricity. It's the fabrication and availability of them has decreased their costs. First, are you finding the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know the answer to your question. I wish I did, Jim, but.
Yeah, I would just suggest that he might want to not do the standing metal seam roof if you have that much faith in the quick development of photovoltaics.
And I just wanted to add one other thing, is that, excuse me, if, even if they do come out with something in the next couple of years, it would have to be track proven to say, what's it going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years? And oxidation, exposure to the sun may result in a type of patina we really don't like. So, I mean, something just coming new onto the market, we need to see what its track record is, I would think, before we proceed.
And then it would require changes to the ordinance, so that we're not being overly optimistic about the speed. Perhaps none of us
it would take a year to get a change in the ordinance.
Yeah.
But you're here now, and you want to have this open next summer, so I
I
think
think
we
it's
would-
standing
what
metal
our
seam
ordinance
roof, yeah.
says. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Just point out vis-à-vis the rain curtain, and I know our desire is to see more of it, but we have, if I'm recollecting correctly, we've improved things like the arches on the promenade, the big arches that are over. I mean, I don't find it terrible that someone has an 8 or 9 foot shower elevated over his pool.
You've got a point there.
It's just, it seems to me it's just within the discretion of running the business. I agree it shouldn't look like it has flashing red lights on it and spinning wheels and things, but you can certainly bring something in more detail, but I don't have a problem with your desire to furnish your customers with a shower when they're in the pool or a curtain or whatever it
It's
does.
very hard to see what it would look like. You only have a down view.
It's going to look like an 8-foot wall of water. It's going to look like
Street
an eight,
elevation on it.
yeah, it's going to look like an 8-foot wall of water.
Yeah. And it's going to be very visible. It's, because it's by definition, it's 8 feet high. I personally, I wouldn't be encouraging, but by all means, try to design something, but it's conspicuous. At any rate, we've had a lot of conversation. Do I have a motion here?
This is a motion for conceptual approval.
It's conceptual, yes.
Our conceptual approval, and feel free to add to this, is the plan is acceptable with the following alterations or considerations. We will not be able to approve the proposed solar panels on the roof at the present time. And we also would like to get much better views of the rain shower over the pool, the design for the doors that are going to go up, and also some whole new thoughts as to what you would use to break up the railings with an element in the center.
Yes, sir.
Such as a pineapple, the symbol of hospitality, and, you know, for many, many years. That's it.
Also, the sunshade, whatever we call that, is going to be reduced in size.
The balances under the roof, over the second floor, they would also be reduced in size
Correct.
in the final drawings.
And the standing seam metal roof is 1 inch.
We asked for a cut sheet on that.
You got it here. Right there.
It's not 1 inch.
It can, this seam height's 1.5 inches. They've got one here that, one of them, I think, I saw it.
It's a good idea when you come back to show the materials checklist and say standing seam metal roof, 1 inch.
Well, yeah,
That would do it for us. I mean, along with the cut sheet, but
yeah. So the more visual you can be with us, the better, because that's what we're doing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Pisagno. Ms. Campbell?
Yes,
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes,
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes,
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Next order of business, Somoza, 1386 Lafayette Street, Block 1145, Lot 7. This is key contributing property. We're going to talk about railings, stairs, rear roof, and a ramp.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We need your name and
Okay, my name is Gabriela Somoza, and I own 1386 Lafayette Street. This project's kind of a two-part project. The first part of the project is the front porch, the existing front porch. I'm looking to put a railing system. Right now, what's there is on two sides, there's an existing railing. It's quite low to the porch, like to the ground of the porch. And just aesthetically, I just don't think it kind of goes with the rest of the property. So I'd like to put a railing all across the front porch, with the exception of the steps, and that's really all I'm looking to do. And then the second part is my back porch right now. When you exit the back porch, there's about like 5 inches that you step down, you hit the landing, and then you go to the right and there's a set of stairs and a small roof. What I'd like to do and what I'm proposing is to raise that landing to where the actual entrance of the property is to make it ADA accessible. I'd like to change the door to 36 inches, and I proposed a potential look of that door that kind of mimics the front door. From there, you would walk out to that landing. On the right, you could go downstairs, which is basically how it's designed now. And then to the left, it would wrap around the side of the property. You'd go around and it'd come down and it would meet where the stairs are. So we would raise that about 5 inches, which gives the height about 33 inches, which I believe that the ramp is sufficient in distance to make it an accessible entrance to the back of the property. And I don't think I'm missing anything. The railing system would match the front railing system that I would like to install. And then that roof that I would basically redo because it's not, it's just weathered down. What I would add to that same style roof is the trim that's photographed. I think it's in one of the trim pieces in the front. I would mimic that same style trim. Right now, there's no historic trim. And that's about it.
I'm not quite sure where the last thing you talked about, trim, is, where's that on?
So if you zoom, I think if you zoom into, if on the with all the photographs, the. Talking about photo number 7? Yeah. They look like leaves.
1.1.
Yeah.
It looks like leaves.
Looks like drop-down leaves if you zoom in.
Did I miss?
It's in dwelling 7, picture, yeah.
On this page,
A31.
It's like
This is,
A11.
cut sheets.
this is, let's make sure, yes, that's where I am. I don't see anything, looks like a leaf. So I'm,
There's an applique on the
this,
Oh, no, I didn't add it there.
AP 1.1.
well, that's why I don't see it.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm sorry.
Go to AP 1.1, dot 1. There. The dwelling number 7, if you look around the top,
yes,
underneath the top of you have some brackets, and in between brackets, you have
Dentals,
some sort of,
that's a dental bracket that
yeah.
is, kind of looks like a leaf. So what are we talking about?
That's the trim that I would add to the roof.
The upper roof.
No, you're talking about the back, right?
The
where-
back, the
yeah,
back.
that little
Yeah, yeah,
back
I'm going to
roof
mimic
over the
that.
top.
Okay.
The
Exactly.
addition.
It doesn't run around.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. We don't control paint colors, but
I know, I didn't realize that. I thought you guys did. But
we'd love to make suggestions, but we do not control paint colors.
for some reason, the broker that sold me the property said that.
Yeah,
But,
Yeah.
so I just put it in there because
Yeah.
that would be the last thing that I would do.
You know, it's an amazingly unique house. There's
Yeah.
only one of them here.
Here,
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Your railing design is really nice. Octagon houses were pretty popular, particularly in upper New York State, and they definitely went with big, heavy railing
Yeah.
systems. So you really picked out a really nice railing system to go
Good.
around it.
I was looking like more the Italian style, to be honest. That's where I was
Yeah, yeah.
kind of drawing inspiration,
Uh-huh,
so.
yeah. You know, the theory behind octagon houses, you could enclose more living space with 8 walls than you could with the same material with 4 walls. So, you know, there's a savings to use the 8 walls, but then you end up with all these pie-shaped rooms inside, so.
Yeah.
So you have to make it bigger to make the rooms work.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It also just made the hallways very small. That's
Yes.
what you notice about upstairs, is
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
hallways are very small.
Okay, so, I'm not sure we have to go around the room on this. I would ask, does anyone have a question or observation on this?
2 questions. So, Gabriela, congratulations.
Thank you.
On your materials list, I think you said this, I just want to make sure that the roof fascia and soffits are going to match what's there. Is that correct? Okay, all right. And do you happen to have or have found any photographs at all historically of what those balustrades were originally on this house?
Probably weren't any.
I don't think there were any.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think my main thing is just the height of the porch. It's, it's substantially above the ground, that just naturally, I think back then, before that huge cement block was put in, I think there was probably a smaller wooden porch. That would be my imagination of what it would have looked like back in 1860.
Yeah.
But now with just that height of how tall it is from the ground, that's the theory behind why I wanted to just put a railing system in. I think that
How
was your
many
question.
steps on the front steps?
I think there's 3 plus the lip, like the step to get the actual porch step.
Because sometimes you get these where they only have 2 steps, and you really don't, code doesn't require a railing. But
So excuse me, are we in a position now where code would require a railing here? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm saying if it's less than a certain amount.
Because I'm taking that this is not being done because of code requirements.
Yeah.
No, I would suspect that you would require, if you're going to make a big change, that this is higher off the ground. I think it's like less than 2 feet or something.
It's 30
But-
inches.
It's 30
But-
inches, yeah.
But
It's
what the applicant is proposing is a decorative item, and it's safety.
As safety, decorative, but also safety.
That's all for me.
Any other questions
No,
or
I
observations?
just,
On your railing, you have here a note that all components to be cedar, factory primed and field painted. However, you say polyurethane is an alternative if approved by the HPC. So you would leave the railing would be natural with a polyurethane coating on it.
Correct.
We don't control color, as you just heard. I would urge you to paint the railing system. It would be more consistent with the period.
Yeah.
Just a question.
So I have a question. Which door are you replacing?
It's the back door.
Oh, okay.
That's the only one.
Yeah.
It's just because right now it's 29 inches, so I just wanted to make it a bigger door.
Okay.
this house never had railings around, except for the ends of the porch, as I
That's,
understand.
and I don't know how long they've been there.
This is for me, it's an interesting question. The railing system you're proposing looks terrific. I mean, I think it's really well designed, it's well constructed, has the right materials. But it's being proposed to be added to a key building that has never had one before. My only, and I throw this open to the group, and that is, in approving a railing system, and we've seen some examples where these octagonal structures have rails for a lot of reasons. Are we posing a potential threat to the character and characterization and classification of the building as key? That's my concern.
I think most of the early houses, the really early ones like this one, that were low to the ground, if this was probably low to the ground, never had.
They didn't need one, they didn't put one in.
Right. And, but I think now in this day and age, maybe people do want a railing system because of that.
Absolutely understood and agreed with. What I'm worried about is the next survey says this has been beautifully and extensively altered and no longer can contribute, and it can no longer qualify as a key contributing building.
But the applicant did supply kind of like a model of an octagonal house that did have a kind of ornate.
Other examples, yeah, no, I get it.
So whether that was appropriate for that style as a whole may be something that we should consider as well.
And it does seem to be appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that's troubling me. It looks completely appropriate. Had I built it like that, I probably would have built it exactly as I would have done as good a job as you proposed, but I would have done it with railings. I'm just worried about our stewardship here of a key building, which is going to have a very substantial modification to it, one that, without that worry about jeopardy, I would approve. We don't really have it seems to me that the feeling here is that this is, and I'm sort of looking partly across the way, that this really doesn't stand a substantial chance of jeopardizing the key status of the building.
So it's interesting, when I looked into this, the octagon houses, and I'm going to defer to Tom, but the ones that I found online, if there was a porch, they had a railing, but most of them didn't have porches, or they didn't have wraparound porches. But the ones that did, they all had substantial railing. So that's why I was asking you whether or not you ever saw any photographs or images of this historically to tell us, in this case, to address Jim's concern.
Yeah.
Plus, you could argue that this building was rated key with the two railing systems on each end of the porch
It,
On a poured
right,
concrete deck.
and on poured concrete, so
right, no, clearly not.
you could argue that, and that railing system that's there doesn't look,
It looks like a 1960s black wrought iron railing.
Oh, that,
Well, it
I'm
is.
talking about the one on
looks like
the
the one,
side.
he's talking about the stuff on the side,
yeah.
though.
On the side.
gotta get
So
rid of
you
some.
could argue,
So Tom, would it have
You're
been
improving
historically appropriate? I mean, the ones that did have porches, in your experience, they did have those heavy balustrade railings, is that correct?
yes, I would,
Yeah.
I'm surprised this house doesn't have a railing system, and I would guess the other way around, that the railing system was there and was removed. at some-
That's kind of why I asked,
No, this
the
house was
evidence of it.
moved.
Evidence of it,
When I
or
was
is,
a child, it was somewhere else. I just can't remember exactly where. Then they moved it to Lafayette Street, maybe something. Do you remember that? Yes.
And
I
that's
just
probably
can't
when
remember
went
where it
further
was
up in the
before.
air.
I think that's,
And maybe something with the railings was compromised. I don't know, but it was moved.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot all about that. I think I have a
It probably did almost sit on the ground. You know, a lot of houses, like Lyndhurst, you know, those porches are just right off the ground, sunny side, up in the same area.
So
A lot of them.
It was
I
moved
think we
sometimes.
could argue that we're improving.
And being that close to one of the busiest streets in town and not much of a setback, I think I'd want a railing system out front too, to just get a little sense of,
can I just say something, just so it's on the record? If it does take away from the key, like the key component, like being a key contributing property, I don't want to do it. So if that truly could happen,
yeah, I mean, that's
I
certainly the right spirit and the right attitude, and I just don't have the expertise to know. But what I'm hearing tells me that there's a good argument that it maintains the status because there's so many like it that had railing systems and railing systems very much like what you're proposing. It's a worry I think we need to, it's a concern. I don't know that it's a worry, but it is a concern whenever we deal with key properties that we worry about things, and this is not a small change to the front look.
I think,
no, I agree.
I think it's key because it's the only one. It's a very unique style, and, you know, we wanted to make sure it completes our collection of just about all the Victorian styles to have an octagon house.
It's a great house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're definitely doing the railing system that would be appropriate for it.
and frankly, it looks better with the railings.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the application as submitted, but is it conceptual here or final? It's not checked.
I mean, I would like it to be final.
Is there anything else you need
It's
to
it's
do?
not
Should have been.
circled.
It
So-
should have been final, but
So-
that's all I'm.
But
I'm
you need no other governmental approvals or anything like that except,
Correct.
so I'll circle final and I'll make a motion that the application be approved as final.
I will second.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes?
Mr. Carroll,
Tom?
How about taking a break? They're up.
Mr. Carroll,
What? Yes.
Mr. Copeland, Mr. Copeland,
Yes,
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience. It's
I just
been a
wanted to
long
comment-
I
wait.
can't wait to
I just
see
wanted to
it.
comment, too, that, you know, for years, the city's been trying to improve the entrance portal into town. And, you know, that's been a real wallflower for years, and this is really going to
Pop it.
punch it out.
Good. Are you talking about because of the way I have to back out of the property?
It's just that it's there, but nobody
It's pretty
notices it coming
terrifying
into
sometimes.
town.
It's that, I don't see how you even make it half the time.
Especially during the summer. It's,
Oh.
I've gotten so used to it now,
you
but
start on these,
during the summer,
I
it's
just
brutal.
let
But I'm saying, with the colors you're
around
picking on,
the
it's
room
really gonna
first,
stand
if I
out.
could Take a look.
Thank you.
It'll help me keep my remarks shorter.
Out of our
I'm sure people would love me if I did that. All right, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Thank you.
We're now open to the public. Judy, we'll keep it open for a few minutes. Would you give the number? Oh, really? I thought it was a good idea.
It is a good idea.
Open to the public? No public here? I'm going to close it to the public. We have a couple things to discuss tonight. Tom wants to share a product. We talked about it very briefly on the phone.
While you start those other things, I'm going to let those be passed around so everybody can see some pictures, so that when I start talking about it, it'll make a little more sense to people.
The only thing is as I mentioned to Tom, on key and contributing houses, it's not what it looks like, it's what it is. And if you're replacing cedar shakes with something other than cedar, that's not consistent. Is this a product that we might be able to use in the historic district on non-contributing houses? Is a question we could look at. We have a couple things to talk about here. The HPC application form, the design standards, and the training session. So the application form and the narrative, we've distributed the final draft. You've all received the final draft. Do you have anything to add or subtract or comment? Or do we want to take a motion and accept it?
Having just absented myself.
Changes.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, I think it still needs a few editorial changes.
You know, that may well be the case. Maybe the best thing to do, because I think that this kind of thing should be a little bit more flexible, or that there should be some authority and discretion conferred. So I think maybe the best thing to do, I would suggest, is we make a motion to approve as submitted or as circulated, but to give the chair the authority to make modifications that the chair feels is appropriate in his discretion. A little winded from running through the stairs, but usually you can't completely draft something by committee unless we want to go through multiple more drafts. So I'd propose that we sort of finalize, but subject to the approval of the chair to do what he thinks is the best thing to finalize the forms.
We've been kicking it around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, someone has to make a final decision.
But will there be any potential conflict between PIP's committee and approving this now?
That's standards revision.
Yeah.
I don't think that's I don't think there's a conflict at all.
And there also is a question of exactly what series and group of documents we should have, and the object here is to produce a package that is user-friendly for the users, but insofar as the actual submission of applications provides us with more detail, more information, is better explained, and gives us a better basis for review and the review of our reviews. So I think we've headed down that route. You had comments about simplifying, for example, and making user-friendly and other things.
Well, I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I read half of it, and, I read the one part of it, the instructions, and I read that, and I made a few comments, like maybe 3 comments. So I don't know, I think I understand the goal, which is that people would come here, and they wouldn't come here like they do tonight, where they don't exactly have a whole streetscape, or they didn't have all their materials, or they don't know if they're conceptual or not, or they didn't circle the right thing. I mean, the goal of this is that when people come, that would all be right, correct?
Right, and an application that conforms with the procedures that we've been using and the processes that we've been using is one thing. Detailed instructions are things we've never had before. We've had hints here, notes there, suggestions there. So detailed instructions, I think, if they're readable, understandable, and applied by administration when papers come in, give us a better chance of more complete applications coming in front of us with less questions we have to ask and less delay. I put that to one side, but the other side of this was when you introduce the package to the potential applicants, how are you going to explain what the HPC does and how we do it and what are the background things? And that is, I think, the area that had received some criticism about it being too formal, too not user-friendly enough. So the whole package has a number of things that would go in it. And again, I don't know when or how we can get final to it, but I don't think we can keep on meeting and going by committee. And that's why my suggestion was that we just give the chair the authority to finalize it as he deems best in his discretion.
And the only point I wanted to make was that, we keep having these recurring problems where an applicant will come in and they'll only have the proposed elevations. So there's really no way you can get a real feel of how they're changing a building. Or they'll have a site plan without any dimensions. And then we can name property after property where they say a swimming pool is going to be 40 feet from the sidewalk, and it ends up being 10. So we need those kind of details, and it has to be in the application before we even consider it. Plus, it's a waste of our time and the applicant if they have to come back.
And there is, I mean, and the application form itself, and Warren, you only circulated the instructions, right, and the intro form, right?
Yeah,
The intro form and the instructions. And the application itself has been modified to dovetail with the instructions, so that those pieces fit. The package ought to include those things to be understood, but also an introduction that says, here's what we do, here's how we do it in a general way, these are the processes, by the way, here's a bunch of papers that you're going to have to fill out. The other missing part is not the written part. The missing part is applicants putting in papers that have to then be processed. And that puts a fair burden on the secretary of the commission in processing those things when they come in. And it might even require one or more of us or some of us to help out in that regard as we come into the new form. And that's just, I think there's going to be a larger burden of getting compliance before things come to this body as a full matter. But in terms of discussion, I think when people gave comments on the various documents, we tried to fit them in to the extent that they were consistent and able to be, the particular point you mentioned about elevations, fit them into the instructions where we could. I don't think it can satisfy all the people all the time, but I think we've gone about as far as we can do in that, that regard.
One of the challenges here is that when you try to put something like this in writing, and you try to anticipate all the questions and issues, this is a complex process. I mean, there's definitions that are unique to the HPC, to the applicant. They show up, things that are very familiar to us, it's new to them, so now we have to have definitions and explanations, and it becomes difficult to make it, a simple document. And I think this iteration, I think we've reduced it as much as reasonable.
And Warren, you also can't get too simple in cases where the original materials issues about who has the burden of showing what it is they have on their property. And there's a lot of finger pointing. Well, he said, and they allowed me to do this. You can't have that happen and then have avenues open for what we do go up to an appellate review, and people start acting as if we're being irrational, or we didn't know what we're talking about, or we should have investigated further. I think this clarifies almost all those points as to where the burden lies and what the applicants are supposed to do. So all in all, I think, as I say, it's a lot better than what we got. And this, it may be that you all are not used to the kind of motions that give discretion to an officer to do what he thinks the best thing to do is, but in the corporate world, that's what you'd do. You'd move the documents to be approved as submitted, but you'd give the CEO, the officer, the discretion to finalize them, and he would do that. So that would be the nature.
Is that your motion?
Yeah, that's the motion. I would have written it out, Pip. I would have written it out. I would have written it out, but it looks like a typical motion. Resolve that the documents as submitted are approved, but to be finalized by the chair, who would use his discretion to achieve the proper form. And I'm sure Warren would listen to you if you had more to say about them. That's the motion. So that's the motion. And seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So get me
Just
your,
a few grammatical changes, but I can
Yeah.
go over that with you.
yeah, just get the feedback
Yeah.
to me, and we'll see if we can get this finalized.
Would you keep that cord around the table?
Design standards, the update on the grant, Pip?
So we did the RFQ, and then the state suggested and other people suggested that maybe we should just have it not be an RFQ, and maybe we should have it be an RFP. So I'm fine with that. So John and I looked at it, and John is now doing it, finishing it, finalizing it. He's going to have it done still tomorrow? Yep. All right. His target is tomorrow. And then as soon as he has it done, then I'm going to give it to Judy, so you can send it to, all those people in the city, like to Chris, Bill, and Schwartz, the same people we sent it to before, right? And then once they come back with their comments, which probably, I doubt if they'll have many comments, because essentially the content of the RFP is the same as the content of the RFQ. It's just reworked a little bit. So I'm sure they'll be okay with it. They had practically no comments the first time. And then we'll send that to Lindsay. And then maybe, I'm hoping that maybe by next week or so, that Lindsay will have it back to us, and then it can be posted. So one of the things that is good is, and this is something maybe anybody could think of in case they know people, but I have a list of people that have done design guidelines that might be pertinent to what we've done, or that people have given me their names that they were good or whatever. There's like 10 of them. Many of them I got because Jake did a whole review of who had guidelines. Everybody calls them guidelines. We call them standards, but they're
There's a
the same
difference.
thing, right?
Well, there's a difference.
Yeah, they're important. So anyhow, but these other people did guidelines. So we got all their guidelines. I took all the names off of there of people who had done it. So our next step is going to be to send an invitation to apply to this RFP to anybody we think would be reasonable to be able to apply for it. And that's basically what will happen next. Hopefully, we'll get this posted. It has to be up for 30 days. And so I'm thinking, we're kind of hoping that by December, maybe, we would be able to award this to somebody.
Were the folks spread out throughout the country or region, or were they
No,
New Jerseyites?
No, some are from New York. many are from New Jersey. Some are from New York, a lot are from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And one of the things we're asking for in the RFP is that people have to submit guidelines that they have previously worked on to demonstrate their competence.
I just wish you would use the term standards, because
Well, I use this
they're
term
different.
standards for Cape May, but unfortunately, nobody else uses the word standards.
That's-
So if I'm talking about who wrote guidelines.
I think we get it. They did guidelines, and now we want them to do standards.
Them to apply to write the Cape May standards.
Yeah. I mean, some people obviously have greater latitude than this commission does in terms of what it
Right.
applies.
Well, that word guidelines was the biggest headache we had.
It was a
I
huge
mean,
headache.
Well, because it was taken as a suggestion. It was taken as a suggestion rather than an imperative. I mean,
Very different things.
And the point is that in many other communities, they are suggestions.
Yeah.
And in some other communities, they're not suggestions, they're requirements, but they're still called guidelines for whatever reason. I don't know what the difference, I mean, I know what the difference is and why we call them standards, but I don't think everybody else adopted that.
Well, I'm not aware of any that are really part of an ordinance. In your research, you must have found some, but I have not seen any that are part of a zoning ordinance as they are in Cape May.
Well, I don't know, I did not do that research.
Yeah.
I just did who has like won awards and who's
yeah.
been.
I mean, ours have been formalized in a very specific way. But it's not impossible, Pip, to have a historic body be delegated by a city body to do guidelines that are essentially binding too. Ours just simply are clearly.
I mean, we just looked
Clearly
at
not.
similarly situated communities where they're coastal or they have flood concerns and they have a large grouping of historic homes. So that was the type of places we looked after.
Pip and I had a conversation before, and I'll repeat it here. I think, first off, we've got to get moving because we're going to run out of time. So we got to hustle a little bit now. I don't see the need for an expertise in historic preservation to build these standards. We have the expertise. The existing standards are well done. Now we're going to enhance those with 3 or 4 different ordinances that we have done. I think what we need is twofold. We need someone who can really pull this together editorially and pictorially, and create a book and print it with the expertise that we provide for historic preservation and our standards. The second thing we need is an expertise to bring this to the internet in such a way that you don't have to go to the city website, which is already confusing, and try to find the standards, but one that in fact is embedded in the Cape May website, but also would stand alone. So if you typed in the Cape May City standards, historic preservation standards, it would jump out. You didn't have to go plowing all through. So we need systems expertise, we need an editorial printing expertise, and we provide the technical expertise. Otherwise, we're going to wind up training somebody to write the standards that are already written.
Well, some of the communities that we looked at, in all the way up to Nantucket and down the coast, they had I described it as historic preservation for dummies, for, someone come in and, there's examples of what you should do, photograph heavy, where someone can look, oh, I own, Queen Anne, I have to do this, this, and this, where they learn by looking at the pictures and, you know, they don't really have to go to school, and they're going to come in much more prepared. But very user-friendly is my point, so it gets rid of some of that questions that people have.
So
I'm not
even
sure
with-
what
With
that-
what Warren's saying, unfortunately, the CLG guidelines and the requirements of the State Historic Preservation Office is that this has to be awarded to somebody who holds, an individual actually, who holds certain historic preservation standards that are part of the Secretary of the Interior standards. So
Qualifications,
it has to
holds
go
certain
firm.
qualifications.
Right.
Qualifications like a degree
Yes,
or,
yeah.
or experience or
Yes,
some
yeah.
certification.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, so, and that person can then meet with us for 5 minutes?
Yes, yes, no, we have all of you. In the RFP, we have already specified how many meetings and when they need to occur, and are they virtual or not. I mean, if the state is prescriptive, we're equally prescriptive.
And a volunteer would never get this done.
A volunteer could not get the grant.
We couldn't get the grant.
We have the grant, and a
The
volunteer.
city has the grant.
So
Yes,
let's use the money and get a pro working on it.
Well, that was my point.
Yeah,
But the pro that we need is, I would just argue, they better have access to systems, technical person, and printing photo capability. Because the history part is already contained in the existing standards, enhanced, and then the whole thing.
That's what these pros have, though. We don't.
We do.
Well, you know, we may, and we may have a lot of it, and I'm not so sure whether it's one meeting or 5 minutes or whatever, but part of the reason of going through that prescribed procedure and having the expertise is you can turn in defending the new standards or revised standards and say, look, this is not only an internal product, but this is, you know, this has got the imprimatur of, Mr. Expert.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a bureaucratic element here, John, that.
That's fine. I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is our need. I have the need. I wrote the grant. We got the grant. And what we need is printing, photography, editorial, systems expertise.
And
Now-
that's what we're going to get.
Now, the fact that we have to hire someone with a degree in historic preservation is fine, and then they can go out and get that expertise.
Page 1 rewrite, this is an enhancement and dissemination project. That's what it says.
I know what it says.
I know, so what I'm agreeing with you, that's what I think you're.
Take yes for an answer.
Anyway, we got to get on with it. Oh, I'm not being, anything that I say, please, I'm not offering any criticism to what is being done.
Was this piece of cardboard?
That product, I can already tell you, doesn't fit our standards.
Thanks for being so open-minded.
You want to watch?
That's
Right.
it.
I can play this one.
Tom, it's not,
Usable on a non-contributing
No.
building?
it's not usable because if you look at page 54 of our standards, there's confusion here. They talk about, this group talks about cedar shakes and different things. In Cape May, it's really solid cedar shingles. That's what is appropriate. There's only one building in Cape May that has a rough hand split. That replicates a hand split shake.
Well, maybe rewriting our standards, we're going to be a little more open-minded.
Why would we be more
And
open-minded
if-
since none
if you
exists?
would at least be a little bit open and listen to me, maybe you would say we could be open-minded, because I've taken some things out of the standards that don't make it a one material type of product.
It says clearly in our standards that
Well,
hand
our
split,
standards should copy the Department of the Interior's.
and they would agree. Then Cape May, there's only one example of hand split cedar roof
Well, that's 'cause
One
we-
example.
That's because we've been so restrictive.
No, historically, there's
You-
one
can I go-
historic
Can I make a
building.
little bit of a presentation then?
Why not?
Well, maybe it's because I'm a pretty readily available guy, but I've had at least 5 people absolutely nail me to the wall about having to pay 3 times the price of the material to replace their roof by having to do a cedar-shake roof, and with quotes up to $60,000.
Yeah, we've
for
seen
a
it.
small house. Now, maybe some of these rich people moving into town can certainly afford it, and they are doing it. But one of the people who lives on Windsor Avenue did this little bit of homework to come up with this catalog, and they've come up with a product that is improved by the National Park Service, which oversees the Department of Interior. And as I went through the Department of Interior standards, I found some interesting little things. Here's like, is using the same kind of material, if using the same kind of material is not technically or economically feasible, then a compatible substitute material may be consideration. In another, I found replacing an incompatible roof covering or any deteriorated non-historic roof, such as asbestos shingles, with historically accurate roofing material if known, or another material that is compatible with the historic character of the building. And that's what this company and another company, Bravo Roof Tiles, which is doing the same kind of thing, is coming out with. These are fireproof. California won't even allow wood roofs anymore because of the danger of fires. They're windproof. Moss doesn't grow on them. They certainly have a guaranteed life expectancy. And if you look at some of these pictures in the catalogs, they are a handsome wood-looking roof, and they are starting to appear on historic houses. I think we're just being closed-minded, and I've said before, if we get so strict with what people can do in Cape May, they're going to be crying to council members and saying, those jerks on the HPC are just pushing us beyond the limit. I can't afford a $60,000 roof on something that looks almost exactly the same and has other advantages to it. It's not even a consideration. And I really feel bad being in this situation. I particularly feel bad when, I have to make this presentation to people about having to use wood shingles, and then the next day I'm trying to ask them to give a donation to a good not-for-profit cause in Cape May. And
This is a difficult area for a lot of us. And I would only say that at some point there is, and I have no idea whether natural materials like cedar, et cetera, will continue to deteriorate, whether their costs will continue to go up. I suspect they will relative to substitutes. At some point, the differences become so large that, and I don't know that we've reached that point, Tom, although we've seen some recent examples. We've seen examples where 2 and 3 times the cost begins to really, people who have historic homes expect that they're going to be subject to regulation. They expect that there's going to be an extra burden. 2 and 3 times, I can't speak with any precision, but at some point, remember, we're regulating. And we have the power to regulate, and we provide these rules, and we interpret them reasonably, and we enact them. But at some point, regulation becomes a taking. A taking. And the harder you push the issue, the harder and stricter you are, the more you are creating the potential for that argument. I don't know that we're there or even close to it, but if you've seen enough condemnation cases, that's one thing. So there's value being taken. The other thing you pointed out is that there's also the problem of reversal, which is something that we have to be aware of. At some point, what we're doing may seem irrational, unreasonable, arbitrary, capricious, and if reviewers of our work fasten on that as what we're doing, then we'll get reversed.
well, Jim, I think it's out there right now.
I'm
I'm not sure whether it's peaked or not, but I think even somebody like Sue Priester, who's been very generous with things going on in town, she says, I'm just in shock that I got to spend that kind of money to put cedar shakes on my little cottage, when, you don't even see that much of the size of it.
And I wish there were economic assistance, that there were the potential, the one thing that would mitigate this differential would be some kind of an economic assistance program, but that's probably also pie in the sky, that you would get a grant, or you would get a reduction, or you would get a tax deduction, or you would get a credit, which would allow a private owner, rather than a business, to not suffer all that. I hear you, Tom. I mean, I really do. I don't know what a solution is, but I hear you.
I would like us to agree to look at more samples. Bravo Roof Tiles, which also does slate imitations, are willing to send us some products down.
But maybe,
I'm willing to do this, but I hate to just run into
but maybe what,
absolutely no with cedar shakes or nothing.
well, but maybe what you need to do is have the discussion.
Can I just interrupt? I mean, this is a National Historic Landmark city. Our standards follow that already. What you just read is right in this first summary here. But our standard in Cape May, wood shingle roofs should be re-roofed with dressed wood shingles. Dressed wood shingles are sawn, not split. The use of pressure-treated fire-retardant wood shingles is recommended. The use of rustic shakes is not appropriate in Cape May.
Well, Warren, I don't think Tom's talking about just this specific product. I mean, manufacturers may actually produce something that looks like a sawn shake.
Can I make a point here?
Better argument.
Could we do this in the?
Trim than cedar roof.
Could we
Guys,
do this?
maybe there's a way we can reconcile this, because what Tom is proposing is maybe we need to consider rethinking what the zoning ordinance says with regard to our standards in order to allow for a little more flexibility. So my question philosophically
precisely
is,
where I was going, John.
what are we preserving? So if we think about why cedar shakes are so frickin' expensive, why is that? Well, because the availability of cedar has decreased dramatically over the last 2 decades, and it's going to get worse. So wait a minute, if we want to have cedar for certain components that are much more close to our ability to touch and see in these historic structures, such as, let's say, the wall shingles, the roof, which we can't touch and see, and by the way, these shingles, I have to tell you, I'd never seen these before, but I'm a big fan now, because they're made out of polyurethane. Their useful life is longer than a cedar shake. So what are we preserving? It adds an R value of 2, where cedar shakes gives you basically 0.2, so it's already a significant. So again, what are we preserving? And I think we're as our availability of these kinds of materials becomes more and more limited, I think we're going to have to at least entertain rethinking some of these, I would say, prescriptive mandates.
And that is in the context of talking about the reissuance of the standards. And we ought to have that talk, not on specific products alone, but just from this standpoint on rewriting them with the potential for additional provisos.
Bring in environmental considerations. Are we just going to keep cutting down tree after tree after tree?
But
Or are we going to have waste products turned into
Again,
long-living, look-alike?
It's not going to solve this one tonight.
Tom,
Okay, I'll shut up.
well, it's not shut up. It's just the standards.
Hopefully your consultant will be able to answer some of those.
The standard,
Yeah,
the national standard. I didn't bring the book with me. Look at it. There's nothing in there that says that on a historic building that you can replace material that is wood for wood. It's not that you can replace it with AZAC or something. Nowhere in that standard does it say that.
I just read you 2 quotes from that. It's
It-
substitute material.
If it's not available, or if it,
Well, Warren, we're beginning to get onto the economic consideration, right? If there is a
I'm not, I got to tell you, I'm not sympathetic.
we get it. I mean, we
Somebody-
get it.
Wait a minute. Somebody, a historic property in Cape May is worth, let's just make a guess. It's at minimum of $1 million. probably 2 million. If they can't afford it, then this is not the place for them. I mean, you can't, you,
Wow.
come on.
Wait, I don't like that.
It is.
This is like urban renewal that got named Negro removal.
You guys are getting a little bit too,
gotta tell-
I mean, as I said, people who have historic properties in Cape May expect extra responsibility. It goes to a point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that point ends, is my point. It may end when the natural material is incredibly scarce, incredibly poor, and incredibly expensive. I don't know that we're there yet, but I'm certainly willing to talk about it. I think I'm sorry?
Certainly seems to be headed that way.
It could be. It might well be.
And for a lot of people, I think it's there, Joe. And I just think,
Certainly by the wincing and the things we've seen, it's obviously extremely unpopular. Whether it's rightly affordable as a premium for owning a historic house, I don't know the answer. I really don't. I'm not going to decide it tonight.
If you want to consider that, I mean, you then open Pandora's box, because I think if you're just looking at touch and feel, AZAC trim is a much better place to start than a cedar roof. I mean, and I don't agree with that. It looks, it's paintable, it does everything that wood does. But the national standards and our own standards talk about replacing material the same as was in place. And if you start doing all the artificial stuff, there's no difference between that and Disneyland or Disney World. You have to move really gently on this. I don't want to be totally insensitive to the price, and I don't want to mention names, but sometimes contractors that are more familiar with asphalt fiberglass and do it day in and day out, when they're then asked to do something different, like cedar shingles, then that price goes up. Whereas if you talk to someone who does cedar shingles on a regular basis, they're in Cape May, then the price is still expensive, but not as exorbitant, because there's an incentive for some contractors to want to do the familiar.
I'm going to tell you something right now. Church of the Advent, if we had to replace that roof on the main building, we'd go bankrupt. In 2001, we replaced it. It was $80,000. In 10 years, it had gone from $80,000 to $126,000. I don't want to know what would cost today to replace that roof.
and how many more years do you think that roof is going to last?
The way we're maintaining it, it's going to last probably another 75 to 100 years.
Cedar,
If you take care of it,
it's 100 years.
I don't think many people have had that experience.
most people don't take care of it. Don't. I mean, we have a company which we contract with to every 6 years they come and power wash it and clean it, and we're paying $12,000 just to do that. But by maintaining it, we're pushing that.
Yeah, you are, but you're also paying an installment price. If you have to add that to the price of the roof, it's the $10,000 to clean it and preserve it over.
It's a much better bite, you know.
Well, it's a small bite rather than a big hit. I mean, I get that part. Has anyone ever discussed the possibility of establishing a city fund or grant? Does the state have them? Is there any hope that
Other communities, which I don't think would be positive at the moment, other communities do have a property tax or rebate kind of help for a restoration. So if you restore a historic property, that you get a property tax break.
It's not an impossible thing. Well, it might not be a great value, Corbin, but it could help and reduce the burden. I don't know. But economically, we're beginning to see a lot of people claim to be suffering. We see the prices diverge. There's more material being produced. If we want them to stick and not, not bring us to be hauled up in front of other people and being reversed, there's a possibility of trying to see if we can get some funds, grants, funds, tax reduction. I don't know, but there is it's not an irrational thing to try and help people who are facing increased costs like that.
Well, it would be, I think, a healthier approach would be to look at tax incentive and historic preservation incentives as opposed to changing the Secretary of Interior standards and our standards.
And that may well be because why should not a community that calls itself a National Historic Landmark in its local government offer a handout to a helping hand to its property owners who are trying to preserve historic buildings? I mean, other than us sitting there as arbiters of what the changes are, what's acceptable and what's not, why not seriously look at those people who need help and try to help them?
Yeah, and just for maintenance sake, there are a lot of people who have a house that's run down and they can't afford to fix it. But
Well, I've done an awful lot of fundraising for not-for-profits, and it's tough to get people to help out something like Cape May Stage or MAC or all these other buildings, and then they ask them to help create a fund that's going to help private homeowners. I think that's when you're going to have a lot of them say, well, if they can't afford it, they should just sell. I don't think people come up with that kind of generosity. And all the grants and everything within the states and other agencies really have to be for 501c3 properties.
Yeah.
They're not. There's tax credit plans, but those are for getting people to go into places like Camden, buy a place dirt cheap, promise to live in it for 5 years or something.
Well,
That's not what I was talking about. In Philadelphia, you can buy a property, essentially in a ghetto, and you can get a tax abatement that's transferable for 10 years. So a contractor can come in, buy a house, not have any property tax, if the house qualifies, can fix up the house, sell the house, and then that tax abatement continues for the 10-year period. That's not what I was talking about. There's some communities, and I'll do some more research, some communities that, for historic preservation, offer a tax incentive for a restoration, a historic preservation restoration. But it seems like, as I recall, it's more of a gesture from the city of goodwill as opposed to making somebody whole.
Oh, I don't think we're even come close to making anybody whole.
No.
I think we're talking about something that recognizes that you've gone down the preservation road, and the city would recognize that by, we all want to pay less property taxes if we can for a while.
But
Well, I don't want to stay up all night, and I know nobody else does, but let me just agree that I will keep looking for sources. I'll try to get some samples, and let's just try to be a little bit more open-minded about it. I'm not trying to force this issue, but
Well, it will have to come up in the reissuance of standards, right? I mean, we'll have to.
It might be-
You have to get to that point.
yeah.
Well, I think that we are all about preservation, and while sticking with all of the standards, I do think that we should preserve the people, these homes, the best way we can. As John would say, otherwise, what are we protecting? We have to possibly be open-minded, look at other things, see if they comply, so that, we're preserving the rights and helping these people to stay in these homes. I think that's a preservation in and of itself. So,
But I think there's a point that's being missed here. We're a National Historic Landmark.
oh, no, I understand
We're-
that.
And part of that is to follow the Secretary of Interior standards. The standards were rewritten in August of 2017. They're well done. Read them. Nowhere in that book that you all have a copy of does it say it's okay to replace historic material with artificial material. Nowhere. So if you want to do
This is
that.
like a long discussion, maybe not just a discussion for tonight.
Oh,
No, I
can
do
we
too,
not
I
just
do too.
Discussion for tonight.
As a matter of fact, I have got to leave. I'm so sorry.
I mean, I'm going to be more blunt than that.
Well,
It's,
I'm getting hungry.
would someone entertain a motion for adjournal?
I move we adjourn.
I second.
I would.
Here, here.
I would argue, before we have a serious discussion about this subject, that everyone read the standards book that I've provided. Read it,
I promise you I will read it again.
Bag.
and then you'll see what kind of flexibility we have.